Hey, what's going on, fight fans, degenerate gamblers, my MMA people? How is everybody doing? My favorite, my degenerates, all hanging out here on Monday. Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. It's pay-per-view week, baby. We got UFC 303, and this card has fallen apart and been resurrected from the dead multiple times, and it's a banger. We got one hell of a fight card to talk through. It's pretty incredible with how many bumps in the road this card has had that we're still going to have one heck of a night of fights. I am personally stoked, as always, but you guys know if they give if they give a couple snails boxing gloves, I'll find a way to bet on it and go ahead and watch that on a Saturday night. So maybe I'm biased. How's everybody doing this evening? We got my guy Dream in the chat. Dixon Cider, we got what? Zimbito is the X silent Imbito. I'm not sure how to say your name. Welcome to the show. Thank you very much. Mushroom MMA, the Grateful Dude. We got Dylan Teese, Lock Day MMA, my man Josh Frick, David Ramirez. How is everybody doing this evening? And you guys are in for one hell of a show. It's been way too long. It has been way too long since we got the Ball Gang together. So tonight, for this awesome pay-per-view card, none other than one of my personal favorite guests, one of the guys that I listened to before I ever started podcasting, Dan from Half the Battle is joining us. Dan, what's going on, my guy? How you doing?
Doing amazing. Even better with that introduction. Ball Gang Unite. I'm feeling it, man, this week. So let's get down to business.
Hell yeah, man. Hey, got to start off at the top. How'd you do last week?
Good. I'm glad you caught me on. Like, lately it hasn't been going my way, but it went my way last week. Thank you, Alexander Volkov, for that plus 200. I really appreciate you. And I'll take the win. So thank you.
Hell yeah, there you go. Hey, I got my ass whooped. You guys know, as always, open, honest, transparent. I'm never going to lie to you. I got destroyed, but that was mostly the PFL's fault. Man, I was counting on these guys to come in there in shape, desperate, still needing points, and they all just shit the bed on me. So I dropped a bag on PFL. Came down -1 unit for the UFC last week. I won my max bet. Hey, the 7-unit max bet record moves to 8-3. I'm not a judge. It's not my fault. Nasrat Hackfrast got his hand raised. Horrible bet. Way the wrong odds. That fight was far too close. I will pat myself on the back, however, for saying that if it's a close fight, they're robbing Gordon blind. That was literally part of my handicap betting that fight, and they sure as hell did. So Nasrat gets the win. I'm good to go there. I didn't have the balls, and that's why, Dan, that is why I'm wearing the Always Trust Your Balls shirt this week. I picked Volkov to win. On Monday, it was just kind of the, you know what? I think Pavlovich is going to catch him at some point. Didn't put a whole lot of effort into it. By Friday, I thought, you know what? I kind of think my boy Volkov might be able to get this done, but I didn't have the stones to actually put any money on him. So props to you for getting in there on that 2-1 and cashing a ticket.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, listen, it was one of those matchups where it's like you got the knockout artist who, I mean, win or lose, every single Pavlovich fight has ended in the first round until Saturday night. And it was always a question of with Volkov, okay, he doesn't have, maybe to the extent of the one-hitter quitter. I mean, ask Jairzinho if he hits hard or not, but I'm just saying, like, regularly speaking, he's more of a finesse guy, like a long, pick you apart, jab, circle, and that's exactly what he did. Beautiful job, Alex, and thank you. And also thank you for selling the fight between the training partnership, making it seem like they were friends. And it's funny because people were like, oh yeah, this is going to go over for sure. They're just going to have a sparring match. And it did go over, but it was like over in terms of like he picked his ass apart and then Sergey pushes him after. So yeah, it was funny how it went down, but I was just happy to come away with a much needed win.
Hell yeah, man. That is good shit. Well, real quick, everybody, before we get into the show this evening, first and foremost, we've already got 300 live viewers. Thank you all for being here. Hit the live button, like button on YouTube. Share the show if you happen to be on some form of social media, please. We would very much appreciate it. But hey, so you guys know, as soon as I'm done with my podcast this evening, I am joining up with the family. I am headed right on back to Pub Sports Radio. We're going to sweat out Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals, the Oilers versus the Florida Panthers. So as soon as I'm off this show, I'm going to be jumping on with those boys, and we're going to sweat out the end of that game. I know we're going to miss the first period and a half of it doing our fight talk stuff, but I'm going to hang out over there. So if you guys want a good time, follow me over there. And I got to tell you, if you've got an Oilers ticket in your pocket, you're dead. You're absolutely dead. Dan, I've got Florida Panthers at 18-1 from preseason, and I have been diamond handsing my way through this. I have not hedged. I haven't put any money on the Oilers, and I'm not doing that tonight either. And on top of that, for the last 2 weeks, I've told you guys about my mushy father-in-law. Well, my man just texted me and literally asked, Clint, how much do you need me to put on the Edmonton Oilers to secure a Florida win? The man has bet the Oilers tonight. Florida's coming home with the cup. You heard it here. You heard it now. And I'm cashing 18-1. But hey, we're on this show to talk about fights, right? I'm a little bit of a degenerate. Got to get the hockey out there.
Just a little bit.
Look, hey, speaking of which, because you were on the show, I bet the Braves and I bet Austin Riley to hit a home run. So let's go. Let's get it. All right, everybody, let's get into the show. We got fights to talk about. First fight of the night, we got Ricky Simón, and he is bringing out Lock Dog Vinicius Oliveira. Man, this guy is hot. Lock Dog, currently the front runner for knockout of the year in his UFC debut. Damn, this guy is fun. And I'll be honest, Dan, I short changed him in his UFC debut. The kid he was fighting felt like an Uber prospect to me. Super young, super high pace, great cardio, great grappling. And for the first round of their fight, that's how it went. He took this guy down. He was beating him up on the ground. It looked like Vinicius was exhausted, and then he caught the second wind. The veteran fighter with 20 plus MMA fights of experience caught the second wind, and he beat the brakes off that poor kid like he stole something. I'm a little surprised, though. I was looking at Tapology, and it seems like his former opponent has a couple of fights booked outside the UFC. I'm like, man, I hope the UFC locks that kid up. Give him another chance. He fought his ass off. But anyway.
Sorry, you said Sopaj has a fight booked?
Well, he had 2 that were canceled since the UFC fight. So I don't know if maybe those were pre-booked or...
No, yeah, it was pre-booked. It had to be pre-booked.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Because I'm just like, man, I hope the UFC keeps that kid, regardless of him winning or losing that
fight.
They'll
at least give him one more chance. They took that on short notice. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You get KO of the year like that on their stage. They got to give you one more for sure. Anyway, Lock Dog's fun, man. Long, rangy, explosive, nasty low kicks. He moves around a lot, plays with his hands low. You never quite know where he is coming from. I like a lot about him, except for that takedown defense. His urgency to get up to the feet, that was good. Him being able to catch a second wind, that was good. But this is a huge step up in competition. They're not messing around with this guy. He's taking on Ricky Simón now. 20-5. He's on a 2-fight losing skid. This man is short. He is thick. He is a relentless grappler, constant pace, constant pressure. He's got big power, man. Big explosive overhands, big explosive blast doubles. It's 50-50. You never know which one of those is actually coming at you when he comes in there. And just an endless gas tank. He's got 2 losses on his record, though, by KO. I've always been just a little bit on the Ricky Simón is chinny train, if I'm being honest with you. And that's
is that a train or is that reality?
Well, it's probably reality at this point. But man, that's, Song Yadong in round 5 of a badass long fight between 2 contenders. There's no shame in that one. It's the Uriah Faber knockout. It's the Uriah Faber jab knockout that's hovering like a dark cloud over Ricky Simón.
That was an overhand right, not a jab, but still.
Fair enough. Man,
I know because I lost 5 units on Ricky there.
So you were with me. You were in the boat with me that night.
Oh, yeah.
Man, so Ricky Simón, a -220 favorite at this point over Vinicius Oliveira. And Dan, I talked about this a little bit last week. The UFC reeks of desperation right now. They are so desperate. They're trying to manufacture the next stars. And you can see it with the matchmaking. You can see them rushing young prospects. They're trying to throw these guys into the deep end and see if they can swim. They need somebody. You know, with McGregor falling off this card, it's just more apparent than ever that the old stars are dying out and they need that next crop, and they're trying real hard to get them. I kind of feel like that's what's happening here a little bit. Vinicius Oliveira, he's not young, so he does kind of need to sink or swim, but this is a massive jump up. Can he catch Ricky Simón in this fight? Absolutely. But if he doesn't, man, what I saw in round 1 and round 2, I feel like Ricky's got that veteran presence. I feel like Ricky cannot make the mistake the kid did. He's not going to slow down. I kind of feel like Oliveira is going to be on his back for 15 minutes here, man. I think Ricky's the side. I feel like the number might be a little wide, especially considering that threat of the KO from Lockdog. But I'm kind of thinking Ricky Simón by decision makes sense in this spot. What are you doing here, Dan?
Well, what do you mean the kid's not young? He's in his 20s. Yeah, like, I mean, he is young. He's not like
I thought 30. He was 30.
No, he's 28.
Oh, he's 28. And okay.
Also,
all right.
I want to say this. You talk about the experience, which you have to bring up. I mean, Ricky's been at the highest level for a while now. But the thing about it is, it's not like Vinicius is one of these kids that's like 6-0 or like 7-1. Who's just coming into the UFC and really needs to just like really pay his dues. This is a guy, like, again, when I watch Contender Series, I watch the fight and then I watch and listen Dana's reasoning of why he did or didn't sign the guy. And Vinicius was one of those guys that he said, I can throw this guy right in the mix right away. And that's what they're doing. They're throwing him in the mix right away because it's pretty evident Ricky Simón's not going to be fighting for a belt. Ricky Simón is not going to work his way up the rankings. Ricky Simón, if anything, is holding up a top 15 spot. And like you said, we want to, out with the old, in with the new. So we got this kid with Lockdog who has 23 pro fights, 22 pro fights before he even made his UFC debut. Obviously, the level of competition wasn't the same as Ricky's, but that experience counts for a lot. So he's coming in here with composure. He's coming in here knowing that he belongs. And this man is a devastating knockout artist. I mean, you talk about that flying knee. What about the Contender Series knockout? What about some of the knockouts on his regional scene? And when you watch his losses, he's been flatlined twice, and there was an injury TKO there as well. But when you live by the sword, die by the sword, I mean, this guy's got 16 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission, so 18 finishes, and the 3 losses, again, live by the sword, die by the sword. The guy gets caught from time to time. Ricky does have a powerful overhand right. He's not the best striker in the world, but he does have power, and he's opportunistic with his takedown attempts. And I think he will get takedowns here. The thing is, like, just to say that, it all comes down to, will Ricky get takedowns or not? I don't think that that's a fair way to look at it, because does the fight just end with 1 takedown? I mean, Ricky is not known for great top control. He submitted a couple guys here and there, but I felt like Jack Shore was massively outsized in that fight. Jack Shore is a fat featherweight, but he needs to be fighting down at bantamweight, in my opinion. But even then, at bantamweight, I felt like Ricky had a size advantage over him. It's kind of sucks for a guy like Jack Shore, who like isn't he's like skilled as hell, but doesn't have the athletic traits, which Lockdog does have. And I think probably Ricky's going to take him down a couple times. Lockdog's going to get back up, and when they're on the feet, that's when Lockdog's going to have his opportunities to rock this guy, which fuck the Song Yadong fight. Fuck the Mario Bautista fight. We could talk about the Faber fight. What about the Anderson Dos Santos fight? That's when we really saw how chinny Ricky Simon is. Like, and this is pre-UFC, getting dropped by a guy like that, choked out right away. We knew coming to the UFC. Pull up the Ronnie Yaya fight. When Ronnie Yaya, Mr. Pull Guard, has you on skates, I mean, I'm just saying, if Lockdog connects here, there's a good chance he's going to put this guy out. And I can't give a confident pick because I do respect the experience of Simón. He's been in the top 15 before. His grappling, I mean, look, the grappling and the experience is baked into the line. That's why he's minus 210 in this spot. But I think it's dog or pass, and I'm hoping, just as a fan of, do I like knockout artists or do I like boring lay and pray guys? I want to see the knockout artist come out here and flying knee this guy's head into the 5th row. So I'm going to go with the plus 180 dog, Vinicius Lockdog Oliveira here.
Fair enough, Dan. Fair enough. And hey, you might be you might be interesting me in that side over there a little bit.
Well,
It doesn't take a whole lot to get me interested in the
You gotta
dog.
trust your gut. But I gotta admit, though, like the judges have been favoring damage more than just laying on someone and not doing shit. And Ricky doesn't have the best top control. Like Ricky needs to get off on damage here. And also, I want to say something about that Sopai fight, because the second round was the one with the big red flag where he got flattened out at times. Going back and rewatching it, he wasn't as close to being finished as I initially thought when I watched it live. And not to mention that round where he had all the adversity, the second round that is, he ends up winning that round. So he goes out there, reverses position, and then really puts it on Sopai and steals the second round. So, yeah, man, two vets going at it, but one spent the majority of the career in the UFC, one outside. I'm going for the young vet here because I like his style more, and he's the plus 180 dog.
That's fair enough, Dan. That is fair enough. Hey, and then one thing I do want to mention that I didn't really give a ton of consideration to, and that's just straight up an oversight by your boy here, is the size difference. You know, Ricky Simón usually plays that bully role, right? Like we know he's a little fire hydrant. We know he's going to be a little undersized, and he just makes up for that with pure muscle. But Vinicius Oliveira is a big dude here. He's going to kind of tower over him. He's got like a 3-inch height advantage here in this spot. And it's not like he's a skinny guy. That's one thing that I tend to look for is like, are you tall, lanky, and skinny, and you're just going to kind of tip over? Or is there still something on that frame? He's well built, man. He's got some serious muscle on him. He is not a guy that looks like he's going to tip over. He's not a Jalen Turner. You know what I mean? So that's a really good point by you, that if he does get those moments to get up and to strike, that's gonna be a tough night at the office for a guy like Ricky to protect that chin for 15 minutes. I kind of like it.
Let's see what happens. Like, again, it is a step up in competition. You've never seen anything like this before, but does it look to you like Ricky's trending in the right direction? But we can go on forever about this. I don't want to take everyone's time.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. No, I think Dan's convincing me on a dog shot here, you guys. One of the ones that I was, hey, you guys know I hate the minus 220 chalk, right? And not my most confident pick on the card. We're leaning dog a pass. Let's get into the next fight. Next up, you've got Carlos Hernandez. He is bringing in Ray Tsuruya, who is the road to UFC winner, I believe. And he's coming in here on, I don't want to say short notice, because he's not short notice. Like, he's had several weeks knowing that he's going to be the replacement fighter. But Carlos Hernandez was originally, not essentially, was originally slated in this fight to face Cody Durden. I think a man you know a thing or two about. So, yeah, man, it looks like the UFC is trying to get another one over here on poor Carlos Hernandez. He's 2-2 since coming off the Dana White's Contender Series. He's got a split win over Victor Altamirano, and then he's got a decision win, a technical decision win over Denise Bondar. The two guys that have beaten him both finished him, and that's Tatsuro Taira and Alan Nascimento. Now, I think there's a pretty distinct difference here with these guys. Taira and Nascimento are huge. Like that, it's a muscular thing, man. It's a size thing. It's a physicality thing. Carlos Hernandez is actually a pretty decent wrestler. He's a good scrambler. He keeps a decent pace. He's got good cardio. He's pretty durable. But when he runs into these guys that he's not able to kind of physically dominate himself, it just seems like he's taken that L at this point. You know, he's got a cap on him when it comes to the athleticism and the physicality. And this 22-year-old kid, Ray Tsuruya, is coming in here 9-0. He's big. He's mean. I haven't gotten as much tape in on him as I would like to, but I did watch his road to UFC final here, man, when he did go ahead and get the win in that spot. And it was a big time scramble. He was super fast. He took the back. He tried to get a couple subs, didn't get it, bailed on them when he needed to, and then found himself in top position and pounded his way to a victory. 1 second buzzer beater. The ref stepped in with 1 second left on the clock. I really would have been interested to see how that fight went if it had gotten to round 2, and if it was really a spot where like the guy was done, or if he was just in a bad spot and couldn't quite escape it with 1 second left on the clock. So here we are. Everybody seems to see the writing on the wall here for what the UFC is trying to do with this fight. Ray is a minus 485 favorite. You can get Carlos Hernandez at plus 370. And I'll be honest with you, man. I've said on this show more times than I can count at this point, I don't trust these road to UFC kids. I don't know if they're ready yet, Dan. I feel like the level of competition is a little bit weaker than some of the other scenes that we have. And even though this Ray kid, 22 years old, he looks good. I'm not sure he's got his man muscles. I'm not sure he's ready for the UFC just yet. Now, there's a very small handful of kids that you can step in the UFC at 22 years old and just be ready to go. I'm just not convinced he's one of them until I see it with my own eyes. I'm a little tempted to just kind of sprinkle at damn near 4-1 Carlos Hernandez to be able to out-grapple and out-scramble this kid on the UFC stage. I'm not parlaying up Ray in this spot. He might be the bed shitter of the week. It's dog or pass for me, man. What about you?
So you said the original matchup was Carlos Hernandez versus Cody Durden, right?
That's what it shows on Tapology, yeah.
Should we call up Cody Durden right now and see what he thinks about this fight?
Hey, if he is willing to jump on, man, we'd love to hear it.
Hold on. Let's see. Can you hear?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see if he picks up. About to get that behind the scenes look if he answers. He might be sparring with Pantoja right now.
Yeah, we're gonna get that voicemail.
He's gonna call me back in like 30 minutes when we're talking about like Ghemmouri and stuff.
Please leave your message.
All right, it's all good. But anyways, so basically what I took away from this kid, Ray, obviously we all know he's a grappler, but there's something I respect about him. I respect the fact that he's not one of these guys like, you know how we talk about it often, how like you'll see like, oh, look who's calling me back.
Oh.
Yo, Cody, before you say anything, I'm live on the Die Hard MMA podcast with Clint, and we're actually talking about Carlos Hernandez versus what's the kid's name? Ray Tsuruya.
Ray.
Yeah. You got any opinion on this? Because you were supposed to fight Carlos.
Man, that dude Ray, he's a really good grappler. And I think that if he can get it to the ground, maybe he can get a submission. Carlos Hernandez is really good at, I wouldn't say really good, but he's got good boxing. And, we saw him and we did a breakdown of him versus Denise Bonder. He took the back and got that big slam. But I don't think he's going to be able to do that to this Ray, however you pronounce his name. I think he's going to be able to take him down and maybe edge out a unanimous decision.
My man. Hey, I appreciate the insight, Cody. I'm gonna let you go, bro. I'm doing a show right now, but dude, thank you for calling me back, brother.
All right, man. See ya.
See ya, buddy. All right, so he's thinking a decision. I was thinking like a submission, not just a decision. Could you hear everything you said?
Yeah, it came through crystal clear.
Yeah. So what I like about this Ray kid is that, you know how often you and I talk about how like you get a grappler, like a wrestler who like gets a couple knockouts, then all of a sudden they forget that they're a wrestler, then they fall in love with their knockout power, then they, get away from what brought them to the dance and stuff like that, right? This kid, Ray, he's not that kind of guy. Like, this dude doesn't even strike. This dude will just go in there right away and shoot. And even though at the UFC level, I'm telling you right now, like someone is gonna time a big knee and knock this dude out silly. And like when he reaches the rankings, especially now that he's so young, there's gonna be a fraud check time. The thing is, this might not necessarily be that fight because Ray, like I said, I like the fact that he's just going to get right into the grind right away. Like, he's not going to make no bones about it. He's not going to try to test out some side kicks or any bullshit. He's going to right away get on the legs and try to get into scrambling situations with Carlos Hernandez. And Carlos can scramble. I mean, Carlos was a member of the third best fight in Contender Series history. What are the three best fight in Contender Series history? Number one, Sodiq Yusuff versus Mike Davis. Number two, Raulian Paiva versus Alan Nascimento. Number three, Carlos Hernandez versus Daniel Barrez. And like, I know that this kid, Carlos, can scramble. I actually think Carlos is skilled everywhere. My issue with Carlos, like Cody was talking about, was he doesn't have the athleticism. He doesn't have that physicality. It's like he's good, but he just like is not imposing at all. So for that reason, I do think that Ray is going to be able to come out here and possibly get a sub along the way, if not right out top control. But no, I'm not interested in laying a price like this on him. And again, there's certain things you expect from certain guys. Like I keep talking about how one day that Fares Ziam knockout is going to happen. I've been waiting for him to get a knockout forever. He keeps going to decision. I'm telling y'all right now, one day someone is going to knock this Ray dude out with a knee unless he fixes things up. Because sometimes he's not even setting up these shots. Sometimes he's just like touch gloves, shoot right away. It's like, okay, dude, like I respect the fact that you know where your strengths are. You're not trying to be uncharacteristic. You're true to yourself. I love that. But, it's going to work here at the lower levels. He's got to really make some big leaps if he wants to swim with the real sharks at 125.
Absolutely. The other thing for me, man, Carlos Hernandez, he's got his man muscles. He's 30 years old. He's training with Bilal Muhammad. Remember the name, a man that you and I are very fond of, and hopefully is going to have a gold belt wrapped around his waist here sooner than later. And that's a good place for him to be, especially as a primary grappler. It's one of those things where, 9-year age gap, it means a whole hell of a lot when one guy is 36 and the other guy is 27. It means a little less to me when one is 22 and the other one's 30. You know what I mean? Like when one guy's just a little past their prime and the other one's coming into it, big difference to me. When one guy is in his prime and the other guy arguably is not quite there yet, it might just be a little too young. We'll see. I think there's only one Raul Rosas Jr. in the UFC at this point. You know what I mean? There's only one Tatsuro Taira. Ray's got to prove it to me. I'm not sure if I'm betting it yet.
Oh,
but if
dude,
I'm betting anything,
you do not compare this guy to Taira, please.
Oh, I know. But a lot of people are going to.
And a lot of people are wrong,
And the UFC is trying to set that up. You know what I mean? They're looking for that same little jump up into the organization, and I'm not sure it's coming. So dog or pass for me, man. All right, let's move right along. Next up, we have got Andrei Arlovski. The Pitbull takes on Martin Buday. And you guys know me. I love me some Martin Buday. And it's funny, Dan. So I'll just go ahead right out the gates here. I've got Martin Buday in a parlay here, and I got so much shit for that. So many people are so adverse to the fact that Martin Buday is in a parlay, and they're talking about how inconsistent he is. But he's 4-1
in the UFC.
He's 4-1 in the UFC, but he is 13-2. He lost one fight, and people are like, "Oh," I'm like, "What are you talking about, man? This guy is in his prime. He's a heavyweight. He's a big heavyweight. He's a real legitimate heavyweight. He's got some nasty knees. That's, I think, his best weapon, man, is when he just kind of grinds people up against that fence, hits them with the knees to the body. He's got decent power. He's got a good top submission game, which, most heavyweights, they don't know what they're doing on the ground. This guy maybe not so much off his back, but when he's on top of you, he can be dangerous. He submitted Josh Parisian with a freaking arm lock in that spot, and that was impressive. Submitting a big old body like that anytime, I think, is impressive at the UFC level. And on top of that, Dan, I am so excited. He is currently out there training with the heavyweight champ. This man went to get some work in with what's his name? Parkin and Aspinall are the two guys he's training with. He just got promoted to BJJ black belt, mind you. And I kind of feel like Andrei Arlovski got exposed on the mat not too long ago. Now, the old dog has run out of tricks. Okay, I love Andrei Arlovski. He's an absolute legend, 34 and 23. But, man, I've got a hard time betting guys when they get close to the age of 40. I know heavyweights have a longer shelf life. I know heavyweights last longer than most other weight classes. But the man is coming on 46. Like, he is ancient, and he's had a lifetime of damage and mixed martial arts. Remember, he's got 12 knockout losses, Dan. 12. Like, this guy, we talked about his chin being dust
10 years ago.
Exactly. And he somehow brought it back around. He changed up his style. He got it done. He got a couple more wins, and props to him, but he's on a 3-fight losing skid. 2 of those are by finish. I think he's going to get out-muscled here. I think he's going to get outsized here. He's going to get out-volumed by a guy like Buday. And I think he's going to get taken down. And, Dan, I can't wait for the numbers to come up because I think he's going to get tapped out. I think Buday is going to show off that ground game because that's something that Aspinall and Parkin both like to do. I think that's the game plan. On top of just getting his black belt, give me Martin Buday by submission in this spot, Dan. I'm calling it now. What do you like here, man? What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. The reason I'm not laying the price is because, you know, I laid a better price on the heavyweight champion Tom Aspinall against Arlovski. The other reason I'm not laying the price is because similar level guys to Buday, like Tanner Boser and Felipe Lins, around similar prices, cost me money by asking Arlovski for a selfie and an autograph in the middle of the octagon. But what I really think is going to happen is Buday is, who was it on Twitter that said Buday equals Butte? That was the funniest shit I've ever seen, but I don't remember who said it. Whoever said it, credit to you. But
good.
I just think that Buday is going to be able to pin him up against the fence, which is what he's known for doing, kind of wear out the energy, kind of dirty box, what was not funny, but interesting about the last fight with Gaziev was Gaziev pulled a Buday on Buday. And here, I actually think the sub look is interesting too, because that Ghemmouri he hit on Parisian, like, are you going to be surprised if he hits one of those here? I won't. Apparently he's been working that a lot. Yeah, so I'm gonna go with the big favorite here, Buday.
All right, let's go. Like I said, he's the first leg of a 2-leg parlay here for me that I'm very much into, very much enjoying. All right, guys, let's get into this next one. You know what time it is. We got to switch hats. We got to switch hats, Dan, because we are all Team Savage here on the show. Michelle Waterson-Gomez takes on Gillian Savage Robertson, and we are Team Gillian Robertson over here. Man, my girl Gillian, 13-8. That's not the shiniest record that you could ever ask for. But since she moved down to 115 pounds, she looks a hell of a lot better, man. She's a bit more of a size bully, and that's always the thing that I talked about in her fights. When she was up at 125, she's an amazing jiu-jitsu practitioner. She has incredible top control. She has incredible top pressure. She's dangerous in every position on the ground. Girl can't wrestle. She's got little to no athleticism, and she can't wrestle. So that was always the problem. You've got this incredible finishing upside, but you just can't get the fight where you need it to be. So if you can stuff these takedowns, she's a bit of a fish out of water. Striking is a little bit better. A little bit. We got to give her credit where it's due. But she still definitely needs some work in that area as well. And she's taken on Michelle Waterson, the karate hottie, 18-12, 38 years old. And I talked about this, Dan. Women, like the heavyweights, frankly, man, they age like fine wine. My girl Holly Holm, she's fighting well over the age of 40, and she's still one of the top contenders. It just takes so much time for the levels to be caught up to in this game. I think the legendary women are just so much higher above anybody else that even though they're older, they're still going to win some of these fights. I looked at this fight when it was first booked, and I was like, Insta-bet Gillian. And then I went and I did the homework, because you know that's what we do for these shows, right? We do the homework. I can't do it. I know a lot of people betting Michelle Waterson in this spot, and I get it. Because even at 38 years old, even being 1-6 in her last 7, she's got a 70% takedown defense rating, man. She held Carla Esparza, who's the best wrestler in the division, or was at least, at 1 out of 10 in shots. Luana Pinheiro, who is way more athletic than Gillian, 0-5 on takedowns. Like, she's still got it, man. She's got those fast twitch muscles. She's got that great kicking game. She stays on the outside. She's got good scrambles. The one thing that worries me is the IQ for Michelle Waterson, because it wasn't that long ago that she went for a takedown of her own on Amanda Lemos and ended up in a guillotine. If she gives Gillian an opportunity, my girl Gillian will sub her. But I'm a little worried about Gillian being able to take her to the mat, man. I'm going to pick Gillian by split, but there's no way I can by split. Like, I think it's going to be close. I think she's going to have to lay on her. I don't know if she'll be able to quite get that sub. She'll be moving forward, but I think she's going to get hit with some shots coming in. Like, it's going to be a close ass fight. I don't know if I can pick Michelle Waterson in 2024, man. So I got to side with my girl. I got to go Gillian, but I can't lay the price. I cannot lay it with her.
Dog, Gillian is 2-6 when fights go to decisions.
I know.
Honestly, this is funny because you're like the diehard Gillian Robertson fan, and I'm the one who's always like bringing up what Eddie Alvarez said about her on The Ultimate Fighter, which is if she can't get her takedown, she's not winning the fight. and that's the bottom line. The thing about it is, you know, you talk about, you know, like a fine wine, which maybe looks wise, yes, like a fine wine, but you can't say career-wise, bro. She's 1-7 in her last 8, 1-6 in her last 7. That is not aging like a fine wine, my boy.
I was more referring to Holly, but that's fair.
Holly just got fucking ran through 2 fights in a row.
That's also fair.
So I disagree, but it's okay. We're allowed to disagree. But what I want to say here is that Gillian Robertson, For someone that Eddie Alvarez said, you know, if this girl can't get her takedown, she's going to break, to go from those days. And I think she even lost to like Barb Honchak on The Ultimate Fighter, like just to put in perspective, the career turnaround. Now she's got the most submissions in the history of women's MMA in the UFC. So if that's not a career turnaround, I don't know what is. And yeah, there is a path to Hottie here, you know, sidekick her and run away. That's it. Sidekick her and run away. Maybe if you get taken down, maybe you got an opportunistic armbar. We saw Mayra Shitara hit that armbar on Gillian. But dude, what I honestly think is going to happen, it's going to be a little sketchy on the feet here for a little bit. But when Gillian gets on top of her, Gillian is dominant on top. And similar to how we were talking about Ray, where Ray, you know, Ray doesn't have any illusions about where, you know, Ray's not going to come out here and try to one hit or quitter you. Ray's going to get right down to the grind. And same thing with Gillian. Gillian's not going to come out here and try to go spin for spin with Karate Hottie. Gillian is going to relentlessly attempt these takedowns until she gets them. It might be ugly at first because Gillian can't strike to be not, you know, I know that's not a nice thing to say, but that's the truth. But when Gillian finally gets on top of this girl, I think she's going to finish the fight. So give me Gillian by sub or ground and pound TKO.
Hey, she got that TKO last time out, man. I was so pissed off, Dan, because I've been talking about the TKO. She's been literally like in interviews talking about wanting it. She gets to those dominant positions and she elbows to open up those subs. And finally she caught the TKO. I didn't bet it. I'd been talking about it for like 5 years and I didn't bet it when she finally got it. I was upset about that. But you know what? I have a tendency, Dan. We're betting. We're talking about sports betting. You got to really try to take your heart out of it. Every once in a while, I can't do that. I self-admittedly sometimes cannot do that. And that's why I got scared to pull the trigger on Volkov. That's my Russian. That's my boy, you know? So I was worried about him. That's with Gillian. I'm a little scared this time. The last couple fights, I've had no problem going to war with her. I'm a little nervous this week. So
I don't know, man.
Picking her to win. I hope
like,
you're
dude,
right.
Like I said, I'm the guy that's always like, you know, questioning Gillian, picking against her. You're the one who's got the fucking hat of hers. And I'm the one that's got to talk you in there here because I really do think that when this fight hits the mat, it might be over shortly. Marina Rodriguez was taking down Karate Hottie. I'm just saying.
Like 1 of 6 or something like that.
I don't give a fuck if she went 1 of 100. Marina Rodriguez took down Karate Hottie. What do you think is going to happen when Gillian does? That's all I got to say.
That is fair, man. That is fair. And shout out my guy, Nuke the House, in the chat. I keep telling you guys about Nuke the House. This man got me paid on NASCAR on Sunday, the Sunday bailout. I lost my ass in PFL, and he got me paid back. He likes Gillian this week, too. So with the two of you trying to talk me into my own girl, maybe we got to get there, man. Maybe we got to get there. She's minus 180. You know, the nice thing about that price tag coming down is that it's damn near playable straight. You don't got to worry about parlaying it, stuff like that. You can lay a little bit of chalk and get there on Gillian. I'm picking her to win. I'm nervous. It's my girl. I want to see her get her hand raised.
It was like, what, minus 150, minus 160, like last night? And then I guess
she opened up minus 250, I think.
Yeah. So if it goes the other way and you get back to a minus 150, I mean, I get playing Karate Hottie at like, okay, plus 250, you know, whatever. But like, if you get a minus 150 on Gillian, I might have to make my first ever bet on Gillian, which is crazy.
I like it. I like it. All right, folks, let's move on to the next one here. We got Payton Talbott, and he's taking on Yanis Ghemmouri in this spot. And you guys already know. So I talked about at the top of the show, Dan, cashed my 11th max bet. Ever since I started tracking, man, I've only had 11 max bets in my entire life. Number 12 is in the chamber, locked and loaded, and it's Payton Talbott. He is parlayed with Umar Nurmagomedov, and I tweeted this out. I never do this, guys. I never do this. I tweeted it out about a week and a half ago. And I really hope you guys got in when you saw it. I retweeted it a couple times to make sure it got to your feed if you're following me on socials, because he is a 16-1 favorite now. The man is up to 20-1 in some places. Like, Payton Talbott is the biggest favorite on the card. He has surpassed JSP. He has surpassed Khabib. Like, this man is the biggest favorite I think we've seen in a long time, man. And I think it's deservedly so. I hope you got in earlier. I hope you got a better number, something that was workable, something that was playable, because Payton Talbott, Dan, is him. This kid is a motherfucker. We talk about Dana White's Contender Series, and you get a small handful of absolute superstars coming out of that bunch. And I think Talbott is that dude. And I've been saying it for a long time. Yanis Ghemmouri, 12-2, 0-1 in the UFC. He's a cocky son of a bitch. Now, his UFC debut, I got to tip the hat a little bit. He got shortchanged a bit, man. In the third round of that fight with William Gomi, he got caught with a low blow. The ref steps in and is like immediately like, no, boys fight. Boys fight. And when they both split, because they both knew it was a low blow, the ref waves it off. It was like, you don't give the man 2 seconds after getting cracked in the nuts in a 15-minute fight, 13 minutes in, and you're not going to give him a second for that. Not only did he not give him a minute to recover, he called the fight, called him TKO loss.
Terrible.
So this guy is tough. He is durable. He does not deserve to have that TKO loss on his record. That was the official's mistake and not his. But this man was on his way to a 30-27 loss. So at the end of the day, he was still going to lose to William Gomi. One way or the other, he was still going to lose to William Gomi. Man, I know a bunch of people that were not on the Talbott train that are now on the Talbott train after what they saw in his last fight, finally waking up a little bit. And they're like, he's going to kill this guy. He's going to kill this guy in the first round. Folks, let me tell you something. Payton Talbott is what we call a builder. He's a cardio machine. He figures you out, and then he cranks from there. He's not going to KO this guy in the first round. You know why? He's not built that way. If he wanted to, Dan, if Payton Talbott looked at Yanis and went, I'm going to get a first-round finish, he could. He absolutely could, but he doesn't do that. He takes his time. He's that
last fight against Simón, he was like, man, I mean, he knocked him out early, tough. But Simón is so durable. And then he knocked him out again early in round 2. That shit was crazy. That was like one of the most eye-opening performances I've seen in years. Was that not something that's like, oh, so this guy's clearly a future top 15 guy?
Yep.
Period.
That was my 10th max bet. I tried to tell people about Payton Talbott. Even money that night, folks. He opened the dog, Dan. He opened the dog to Cameron Simón that night. Couldn't believe it. But what I'm saying is, I think this is going to be a round 2 finish. I think this is going to be a fight where Yanis is able to keep the distance because he doesn't crash forward. He uses footwork. He plays the outside. He skips around the cage. He makes you chase him. I don't think it's going to be quite that easy to track him down and finish him just immediately because he may not be a willing participant. Now, he does explode. He does crash the pocket. He tries to explode and come in with big power shots. If Talbott catches him in one of those transitions, it's over. It could be done quick. I'm going to predict round 2, but it's Payton Talbott all day, man. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I actually don't think Yanis Ghemmouri is as bad as people think. No. He had a very unfortunate deal in his debut because I don't know if you remember, there was a big switch up, right? It was supposed to be Taylor Lapillus versus Buin Gafarov. It was supposed to be Yanis Ghemmouri versus Calvin Loughran, and it was supposed to be William Gomis. I don't remember who Gomis was supposed to fight. But anyways, fight week happens, and Ghemmouri lets the UFC know, hey, I can't make 35. So they do a big switch up. Gafarov pulls out the Taylor Lapillus fight. So then they take Loughran from the Ghemmouri fight and do Loughran versus Taylor Lapillus. And then they end up taking Ghemmouri up to featherweight to fight William Gomis. And in that fight, I mean, the way I view Ghemmouri, even just like watching his regional tape and his UFC debut, just a solid low output French kickboxer. That just, I don't think he's bad by any means, but I don't think he's anything special either. And there were spots in that fight where I can see Payton actually having openings, not just for like upstairs moves like head kicks, knees, stuff like that. I think he's live for a guillotine too in this spot. I think there's a submission possibility in this spot as well. And I thought the finish of the Gomi fight was bullshit. Reason
Big
being
bullshit. Number one bullshit.
Reason being was this. So it did hit the body, but here was the thing. On the relay, it literally adjusts the dude's cup in a way where it's like, bro, like, can't you just check instant replay right away? It was probably like an inexperienced ref. You know, it was over in France. Like, you know,
when the
I don't
cup
know.
moves like that, man, you could crush a testy. That ain't cool. That hurts worse sometimes.
Yeah. So they should have let the dude go on to, you know, at least finish the fight. Right.
Yeah.
But either way, he was going to lose. But here, The thing is, I'm glad Yanis Ghemmouri is moving down to his normal weight class, but Payton, he's got that thing about him, man. And like you said, he likes to build into fights. Like you saw the Reyes Cortez fight, the Nick Aguirre fight, kind of dropped the first round, excuse me, against both guys. But man, you saw these glimpses, the backflip he hit on Reyes Cortez on Contender Series. Like you just don't see that off of like a takedown attempt. Against Nick Aguirre, we were talking about the back flip. What about the back take? After escaping his own back takes. And then the Simón fight was just like, oh shit. That was what people call aura. That was what people call him. That was like, yeah, okay, this kid's clearly going to be in the top 15 one day. So yeah, I mean, I just think he's got an outmatched opponent. Initially, before I watched tape, I was like, Ghemmouri's not that bad. Maybe he can make it to the decision. But after I watched tape, I really do think Payton might come out here and just starch this man, or guillotine him, or drop and choke, whatever the case may be. We're gonna pick the minus 2,500 favorite here and act like geniuses, right?
Yes, sir. Dan, it's not about Ghemmouri being that bad. It's about Payton Talbott being that damn good. The kid can win this fight however he wants. And I think actually you had a good point. You mentioned the submission. A lot of people, I already heard it. People are talking about parlaying up the KO prop at minus 250. Please don't do that, guys.
Bro, you saw William Gomez getting on the neck of Ghemmouri. What's his fucking name? You saw William Gomez get on the neck of Yanis Ghemmouri.
People do not know how good Talbot is. They saw one thing and they think he's a striker. Kid can grapple. Let me tell you guys, the submission is just as much of a threat in this spot. And if he feels like showing out, he will. The sub is on the table. And we've talked about this before, guys. We did it with Bo Nickel. When he knocked out his opponent, we said, hey, let's take a minus 800 favorite and let's make him a plus 200 dog, because of course people are thinking sub, of course people are thinking decision. Play the knockout prop because he can win however he wants. That's exactly what you do in a spot like this. He's a minus 2,000 favorite. You can't play the money line. Inside the distance is minus 4,500. You probably don't want to do that. You could. That's probably the best way that you could do something. But if you want to get greasy, if you want to find an angle, if you want some kind of value, Talbot by sub at plus 350. That's the way you look at it. Because if he wants to show his skill set, if he wants to show how well-rounded he is, if he wants to mix it up with a guy who does apparently have an obvious weakness, that's where you find the value. Make a minus 2,000 favorite, a plus 350 dog.
What's the under? The under is dog money too.
Is it? Let me see.
Yeah.
Let me see what the total is. Fight doesn't go the distance is minus 600 on Bet Online. Do they have totals up? Yep, we got totals. 1.5. Under 1.5 is plus 105.
Oh. Yeah.
So if you want to get greasy with a 1.5, you got a little bit of plus money there.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's what I'm saying, man. I'm kind of thinking it's round 2. So you know that half round scares me a little bit. All right, folks. We have got over 800 live viewers, my guy Dan. Thank you so much for being here, breaking down UFC 303 with me. This is the home of fight. Do us a favor and hit the like button if you haven't done so already, please. And thank you. Also, subscribe. Why not? And make sure you support my guy, Dan. Half the battle in the house, hanging out. Dan, what's the shirt? We had someone ask earlier in the show, what's the shirt? What is it?
It's this metal band called Doth, not Death.
Okay.
Doth, D-A-A-T-H.
I was reading Death. I was trying to figure it out.
yeah, Doth. And my brother happens to play guitar in that band, and gotta support.
Hell
and they got a new album out called The Deceivers, available on all streaming platforms. Check it out if you like metal.
Shout out Doth. All right. We'll have to check that out after the show. Next up, you got Charles Air Jourdain taking on Jean Silva, the Lord Assassin himself. And this is the fight on this card. If you had to circle one fight on the card for me and be like, you don't got to bet it, you just watch. That's this fight for me. That's this one for me. It's going to be an absolute banger from start to finish. The UFC knows exactly what they're doing here. Charles Jourdain is a guy that is an all-action fighter, 24/7. He lives for glory. He wants to go in there and go to war. Now, it reminds me a little bit of the Diaz bros back in the day where they would lose decisions and get all pissed off. You don't play the game. And that can bite you sometimes. You know, if you're not playing the MMA game to win it, you're only looking to get out there and destroy your opponent. Yeah, if you finish them, that works out great. But if you can't finish them, sometimes you wind up on the wrong side of the scorecards. So Jourdain is an all-action fighter. He's a fun watch. He's must-see TV every single time. Now, Jean Silva, this is the guy with the record for longest walkout in UFC history. This is the guy that stares down his man with intensity that he could light them on fire. Like I'm honestly concerned for his opponents sometimes. He's one of the fighting nerds, big explosive power, leaping left hook, right cross combo, absolutely massacred poor Weston Wilson that night, man. Disrespectful the way he just went in there and knew he was going to get the knockout. There was no question whatsoever that it was coming. It was just a matter of time. And in his last fight, you know, I had some questions, Dan. I know you're a big fan of Jean Silva, but I had some questions. I like William Gomez. He's a tactician. He's a guy that I think could cause some problems. That fight got canceled. And it's one of those spots where they're acting like Jean Silva won the fight already. And I'm like, God, you got to run it. I got to see it before you can act like he won the thing. But here he is. He's getting that step up. He's taking on a guy in Jourdain. This should be a hell of a fun fight. High paced, back and forth. And we got a close to pick 'em line here in this spot. I've kind of poked holes a little bit in the resumes of these fighting nerds guys, Dan. I like them. They're intelligent. They think through their fights. They've got good game plans, but I'm just not entirely sold on Jean Silva yet. You know, you can get him at even money right now. Jourdain is a minus 120 favorite. I think that makes sense. And it's one of those spots where it's just a coin I don't need to flip. You know, if you make me make a prediction gun to my head, like I kind of think Jourdain is going to be able to bounce back and win this fight. But I am not at all confident in that. This is a gambling podcast, but you don't got to put your money on everything. I'm going to pass on this one. Fireball and popcorn. Enjoy the show. But I'm glad you're here because I know how much you love Jean Silva. I want you to talk to me a little bit more about this. Let me know how this fight's going to play out.
Yeah, no, this is a hell of a fight. And I believe in something called paying your dues. Who did you pick in the Whitaker versus Ikram fight out of curiosity?
I had a very decent-sized bet on Mr. Whitaker, the Reaper himself.
And why was that?
The levels, the experience, sir.
One paid their dues. One is currently paying their dues. Charles Jourdain has paid his dues. Charles Jourdain makes his UFC debut against Desmond Green. I don't know if y'all remember who that guy is, but that guy beat Josh Emmett, was perennial top 15 to top 20, just had some like legal issues and couldn't like stick it out in the UFC. But like that was Charles Jourdain UFC debut. My buddy Jean Silva's UFC debut was Weston Wilson. Now he handled Weston Wilson exactly how you're supposed to handle Weston Wilson. And I want to say this too, for y'all that got in on Jean Silva at that plus 170, that plus 160, that plus 150, y'all did your job. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Because when I saw that Jean Silva plus 170, I was like, shit, I might take a look because the guy goes for it. The guy's aggressive for not having the same amount of experience. He's got good composure, comes out of a decent gym. Now, you said you're not sold on Jean Silva. What does that mean? Because let's talk. When you say you're not sold on him, I need specifics. Does that mean you're not sold on him being a future champ, or does that mean you're not sold on him just being another exciting fighter on the roster? Does that mean you're not sold on him being a future top 15 guy? What exactly do you mean when you say you're not sold on him?
I'm not sold on him being a future top 15 guy. I'm sure he's an all-action fighter, but I'm worried that not worried. I think he's one of these middle-of-the-road guys. I think he's a lot like Charles Jourdain, where he's not going to challenge for gold. He'll be fun. He'll be exciting. He'll put up highlights. He's going to be a great addition to the UFC roster. But people are treating this guy like he's headed for the title. I don't think he is.
Okay. So you think what I wanted to get to is you think he's going to stick around?
Yeah, for a little bit. He'll be here.
And we agree on that. And he's going to have a lot of exciting fights. The thing about it is this. Charles Jourdain, dude, that last fight he had against Woodson, that was such a close fight, man. And the stylistics of that, the physical attributes of Woodson, 6'3", a near 80-inch reach. It's just hard to close the distance on a guy like that. And I thought that Jourdain was fighting very admirably. Now he's got a 5'7" opponent, obviously doesn't have a near 80-inch reach. And I'm not saying the size is going to be the reason that he's going to win the fight, but you take into account the experience. You take into account that he doesn't have to close, a 10-inch reach advantage or whatever Woodson had on him there. And I think that just the little nuances of the game that come with being a seasoned vet, paying your dues, having all those ups, those downs, being in there with top level competition, all that counts for something. And Jourdain still has a lot of miles left in the tank. So I love Gene Silva. Anytime you walk to the cage, you're barking, you get flying knee knockouts, you get guillotines, you're destructive, like you come to fight. Like, I am a fan of Gene Silva, but I think that Jourdain right now is a little bit too much too soon for Gene. I think that Gene's going to have moments in the fight where it's like he takes the L, but it's an honorable L where you're like, oh, I can't wait to see his next fight. One of those where Jourdain, he's got the vet tactics, the experience, he gets by this one, but you walk out thinking, oh, I can't wait for Gene Silva's next fight. So I'm going to go Jourdain by decision.
I like it. I'm glad we agree on that, man. I'm glad we agree. And now Dixon Sider trying to put us on the spot here. Give us your best Gene Silva bark impression.
I should bring my boy Leo out and try to get him to bark. I got Leo in the house with me.
Hey, my boy Bo has been going nonstop over there. I see people noticing in the chat the dogs are barking. Let me give you a little. He's 6 months old, folks. He don't know what he's talking about. He's been barking because he's pissed off mom hasn't taken him for a walk yet. So he's been barking for the last 3 fights straight. So, if you want to use Bo for your measuring stick on the dogs barking tonight, you go right ahead. I'm not ready to trust him. He hasn't proven himself yet.
And let me say this too. When Gillian Silva finally decides to shave that head, look out. That's when the mythical creature's coming. But until then, I just think that he's just going to have to take an honorable setback. No one is exempt from that first UFC L. You're fighting a guy with 13 UFC fights. Like, there's no shame in this. And I think they're going to put on a real fight. They're going to put on a nice show, a 3-round battle with Jourdain just edging it out, with his experience. So, yeah, that's how I
like it. I like the call. Glad we agree on that one. No money on it involved yet. Might not ever get involved from a financial standpoint, but you and me are on the same page. Let's go. Next up, Killer Cub Swanson takes on Andrei Touchy Fili. I love this fight, Dan. This is a couple of guys that have been around for freaking ever, but there's a lot of weird stuff going on here with this fight. So let me just kind of set the table here a little bit. Andrei Fili, 23-11. I've got a bit of an up and down history with this guy. You guys know I've talked about him a bunch. He is dangerous as all get out in the first round. We talked about how against Woodson, he almost had him out of there in the first round. I bet him that night, thinking that he was going to finally be the one to crack the wobbly chin. I'm sorry, not Woodson, Wood, of Nathaniel Wood. He ends up not getting that first round finish, and he gets grinded out over a 15-minute decision. Now, his next fight around, he comes out again like a bat out of hell, and he starches Lucas Almeida. The story with Fili is if he doesn't get that first round finish on you, he ends up in a very close fight, Dan. He's very competitive, but he ends up on the wrong side a lot of the time. Now, your Anderson Brito absolutely starched him. Bryce Mitchell grinded him out, right? His wins are a split over Charles Jourdain and a split over Bill Algeo. So if he's not finishing, a split
over Charles in Charles' second or third UFC fight.
2020. That was a long time ago, man. So his wins are guys that aren't on the roster anymore. Miles Jury, Artem Lobov, Shimon Moraes, who's losing in the PFL now. He's always the bridesmaid, never the bride. I'm a fan of Touchy Fili, but it was 4 months ago that he got starched by Dan Ige. He didn't go out there and get the win. In fact, he's the one that went and got put down. Cub Swanson, the R word's got to be coming soon, Dan. I don't know.
Oh, it's already coming.
He's 29-13. And if you watched his last fight, he robbed Hakeem Dawodu blind. These judges gave that man, they gave him a horrific decision. And he was cheering for Hakeem Dawodu, clapping, giving his respect. There was no chance in hell he thought he was winning that fight. And then he got his hand raised. His wife was there. His kids were in the front row. It was a beautiful moment they were sending the legend out on. And then he cried. I thought he was hanging his gloves up, Dan. I thought it was over. I thought Cub Swanson was going to retire right there and put his gloves down in the center of the octagon that night with the way he was getting so emotional talking about the journey he's been through and everything fighting has brought him. And yet here he is turning around to fight again. He's been alternating wins and losses here in this spot. He opened up plus 135. He's now a plus 200 underdog in this spot. And it's interesting because I want to know why Andrei Fili is fighting 4 months after getting devastatingly knocked out. I think that is way too quick of a turnaround for a guy who's been KO'd several times. And if you watch the couple of KOs he's had recently, man, it's the same punch. Ige and Anderson Brito caught him with damn near the same combo. Now, obviously, different levels of power we're talking about there, but one of Cub's best weapons and one of the things that he was landing on religiously on Hakeem Dawodu was the jab, overhand right. That right overhand seems to be something that Fili's just not picking up. Am I crazy for wanting to put money on plus 200 Cub Swanson in this spot, Dan? I don't think that he's so shot that he's going to get finished in round one by Andrei Fili. And that means two things to me. If he's not getting finished in round one against Andrei Fili, then that means the fight is either going to be very close, in which case I want the value side, which is plus 200, or he's going to finish Fili. Those are the only outcomes I see, unless he gets starched in round one by Andrei Fili. I know he's older. I know that our word is coming. I don't like that interview he had, but I don't like anything coming from the Fili side at this point either. Talk to me, man. You said it's already coming. Did he actually say retirement? Is this Cubs retirement fight and I missed it?
I mean, probably, but like the thing about it is, did you see a fight between Robbie Lawler and Nico Price?
Yes, sir.
And Nico Price was coming off a KO loss to Phil Rowe prior to that, correct? So Nico Price gets knocked out by Phil Rowe, goes and fights Robbie Lawler, and Robbie Lawler's retirement fight. Nico's the 33, 34-year-old. Robbie's the 40-year-old. What happens? The guy who's historically had a much higher level, more successful career went out there and knocked out the guy who, like, bro, do you know what Cub Swanson's best wins are off the top of your head? Don't look it up. Just tell me.
Off the top of my head.
Don't even, just if you don't know, just let me say it.
Go for it, man. I don't know.
Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira. Like, this is a level that Fili has never seen before. I don't care if these fights were a million years ago. Like, I say he's never seen before. That's not true. He's fought the Max Holloways and got choked out by them. And anytime Fili's taken any kind of step up, I mean, he's lost. And the thing about Fili, you don't have to talk me into this because I fade Fili every single fight. And I love Fili. You got to take away like your fan cap with the betting side of things, because Fili, as a fan, he's the man. Every single fight's a war. Like, the guy is super exciting. He's hung around the UFC this long. You got to give him respect. But stylistically speaking, so about that Dawodu fight, I bet on Dawodu in that fight. Yes, I was pissed off. But when I watched that fight again, just like yesterday, bro, okay, maybe I still scored it for Dawodu, but like, Dawodu did not do himself any favors in that fight, dude. Like, when Cub Swanson is taking you down easily with no resistance in round 3, and you're like this minus 250 favorite, and like you're getting rocked by Swanson in round 1, and like, dude, like, Hakeem can cry robbery all he wants, and I'm a guy that bet Hakeem, and we can do the whole bit and not take any accountability. But that was a close ass fight, and Cub fought a lot better than that line indicated. And even if we think that Hakeem won that fight, like, that was a dog or pass situation with how close that fight was. That was not a dominant performance by Hakeem whatsoever. Now, as far as Cub's current state, I mean, we understand he's a diminished version of himself. The good news for him is he's going up against a super chinny, inconsistent guy in Fili who can lose to anyone and can beat anyone, right? Like, Fili is the definition of a hot and cold fighter. And this reminds me of Robbie Lawler versus Nico Price. And I think Cub Swanson is going to knock out Fili and retire.
I'm with you, man. I think that Fili is coming back way too quick, and I think Cub might actually be one of the few who actually goes out on a high note, man. This number kept on climbing. He's up at 2-1. The bookies thought it should have been closer to pick'ems, and it's just going through the roof, man. I'm seeing plus 218 now. So I'm sitting tight, guys. I'm just chilling. We've got over 900 live viewers watching us right now, Dan. Folks, if you agree with us, if you're listening and you want to play with us, please just wait. Just chill. We don't need to flood the market right now trying to hit this number. Give it a minute because I think we're headed for a split. Either that or Cubs going to knock this guy out silly because he's coming back way too fast, and the damage that Ige did is still going to be hanging around there. He didn't take enough time to heal. I don't like it. I think Cubs' speed advantage and boxing advantage is going to be too much. I like Cub Swanson, man. I think we got a live dog.
Yeah,
All right, folks.
But you can't be too confident. The guy's 40, retirement fight, fighting a much younger man, but half unit shot, 1 unit shot. I don't fault it at all.
Yeah,
because you're not gonna catch me dead laying no -2-0 on Andrei Fili.
Yes, sir.
Against anyone on the roster. Maybe Timmy Kawamba, but that's it.
That's the key. That's the key right there. All right, guys, let's hear from the sponsors real quick. We got to shout out our people. First and foremost, this is the Home of Fight, guys. If you don't know about it, you better get on board quick. Join the Home of Fight. Join us here in the what is it called? The Discord. I post all my plays in there. I've got a channel in there, so if you guys want to see what I'm putting up, it's in there. It's a free Discord. There's going to be a lot of people in there chatting about fights week in and week out. Of course, other stuff. You can talk about whatever in there. And then, of course, they do have the paid version of the Discord with professional picks, etc. I'm not in there. I'm in the free stuff. So join, come hang out, have a good time. Join the Telegram. You get news blasts as they come through, breaking news, everything. That's where you want to be. And Telegram's actually pretty awesome for that shit. I've talked about it for a couple of weeks now, guys. I'm old and I'm learning the technology still. This is a cool thing. Next up, you got Spectation Sports, everybody. If you don't know Spectation Sports, another train you need to get on quick. If you're looking to study these fighters before they make their UFC debuts, if you want to keep tabs on the guys that are going to be on Dana White's Contender Series, they are fighting on Spectation Sports. And a lot of these have betting lines. This week, we've got a double header coming up, if I'm not mistaken. We've got Aries Fight Series and Mecca on the way. So make sure you jump in there. Promo code DIEHARD will get you 20% off of that subscription. Next up, fight numbers. Our guy, John Kelly, he's helping me turn a profit or break even at least a little bit in DFS. Fight numbers is where you're going to get a ton of stats. You're going to get this board where you can see the best number to bet on any fighter. They've got projections, they've got tools, and of course, they've got their own professional picks on there. This is a wonderful tool. There's another link in the description of the video. Promo code DIEHARD yet again. We'll go ahead and get you access there for a little bit of a break. Last but certainly not least, Bet Openly. You guys know all about Bet Openly, or at least you should at this point. 1% juice, everybody. You're saving money on every single bet you make. They have saved gamblers like us over $7 million already. Bet Openly to the moon, baby. Join, sign up, use the link in the description, get in here. You can bet on anything and everything, and the numbers are going to be better on this platform. For example, let's take a look. We're going to go ahead and click on over here to the UFC. And let's see here. What's like a good little close fight? Here we go. Gillian Robertson. She's like -180 out there. She is -165 on Bet Openly. And Michelle Waterson is a matching +165. The winner of the bet pays the 1% juice, and that is how she goes. Also, think about it this way. You're not funding some billionaires' pockets when you lose donating to a sports book. You're funding another degenerate. Somebody else is picking up the other side of your bet. We're keeping the cash ourselves. That's how this works. It's a wonderful service, guys. And on top of that, we're running giveaways. We're doing contests. The Gauntlet, which we've done 3 of now, Dan, is starting this week. It's a $50 bankroll challenge. All you got to do, sign up for Bet Openly. If you've already signed up, make sure you got $50 in your account, or deposit 50, get 50 in there, guys. It's a 6-week challenge. One bet per fight card for 6 weeks in a row. First, second, and third get cash prizes at the end of that 6-week period. First place gets $300. Second place gets $200, and third place gets $100. All for fun. It's a $50 bankroll challenge spanning 6 weeks. One pick per fight card. and we have a good time. Follow me on Twitter. I've got my pinned tweet that kind of explains and details the rules. That's it. It's very simple, but get in here. It is fun. We are giving away $600 in cash prizes just for you guys coming out and playing with us. So check it out. Sign up. Come save some money with Bet Openly, and then have some fun with us on this bankroll challenge. I am currently talking about UFC 303 with my guy Dan Levy from Half the Battle. Make sure you support our guy, and we're going to go ahead and get back in to this fight card, man. Next fight up, Joe Pyfer takes on Marc-André Barriault, the power bar himself. And Joe Pyfer is back, ladies and gentlemen. He is back. Oh, took that veteran lesson, Dan. Had to take that L. I talked about it. The UFC is desperate for stars. This kid might be a stud. Body Bags might be one of the next stars of the UFC. He's just 27 years old, and he is a monstrous finisher. But they sent him straight up, skyrocketing up that depth chart, and gave him Jack the Joker Hermanson. Little too much, little too soon. He had his moments in that fight. He's got to figure a couple things out. Back to the drawing board. But what do they do for him? They're going to give him a fight that I think is extremely winnable and suits his style. He's taking on Marc-André Barriault. He's a guy who, in his last fight against my boy Chris Curtis, did his very best Jack Hermanson impression, didn't he? He tried, man. He tried to stick and move around that cage and make him chase him, and it just wasn't quite working. And eventually the power bar reverted to who he is. And that's a come forward and melt you with cardio type of punishing offense. This guy likes to get in your face. He likes to put his boxing to work. He likes to rip your body. He likes to take the damage, outlast you, and make you quit. That's who the power bar is. That's what got him to the dance. And I think that's why this fight is being booked, because the UFC knows that if he tries to dance around the outside for 15 minutes, he's probably not going to do it well enough to win the fight. So eventually he's going to have to throw his hands in the air and he's going to have to crash with Joe Pyfer. And I think if Body Bags is getting in a car crash, I'm picking Body Bags. This is going to be the second leg of my parlay, Dan. I'm closing out that two-legger Martin Buday with Joe Pyfer. The reason I'm not just playing him straight up with like the knockout prop or something like that is, first off, he's got a dangerous submission game, definitely possible for a club and sub. And he is an improving 27-year-old kid. There's a chance he takes his foot off the gas just a little bit, comes out, shows new wrinkles, and wins a decision here. I expect Joe Pyfer probably gets a finish. I'm thinking he gets a knockout, but those other options are on the table. So I'm being a little safer with the money line. That's why he's in the parlay. But I fully expect Joe Pyfer to bounce back and get back on track here.
Yeah, I'm not as high on Joe Pyfer as you are, but I do got to give him credit. I think he's a very physical guy. I think he's kind of a brute. I think he hits extremely hard. And you can say similar things about his opponent, Barriault, you know, also a brute, kind of got that hockey enforcer mentality, those uppercuts in the clinch. He's super exciting to watch, and he's always put up really good output. And I'm curious if his output could actually be a weapon here against Pyfer. Reason being is, like, you watch that Pyfer fight that went 5 rounds, and in that 5-round fight, Pyfer landed less significant than Marc-André does in his 3-round fight. So Barriault does have an output edge, but I think that the power edge goes to Pyfer, the physicality to Pyfer. I see maybe Pyfer edging out 2 of the 3 rounds, but I think that it's probably going to be closer than people expect.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. As long as he gets his hand raised, I'm happy. All right, guys, we're getting to the good stuff. We got the last couple of fights coming up here. The pay-per-view portion of the evening. Ian Machado, Garry, they call him the future, and he's taking on Michael Venom Page. This fight, Dan, screams, build a star. So we saw this exact scene play out when the UFC brought over another fighter, another notable fighter. You know, Conor McGregor may have weaseled his way out of a fight coming up here. But I can't believe this, man. I am stalling because I am absolutely blanking on his name. What is the name?
Chandler,
thank you. Oh my God, so embarrassing. Michael Chandler, man. When Michael Chandler came over to the UFC, I jumped on it. I was like, I am betting against this man. I am all over Dan Hooker here in this spot. And he got toasted. Dan Hooker got laid out in that spot. But what happened? They turned Chandler right around and they feed him to a top guy. And then we find out that, maybe he's not quite top level here in the UFC. I kind of think we're following the same pattern here with Michael Venom Page. This guy is a stud. He's a star. He is fun. He's the biggest name in Bellator. And now he's over here in the UFC. And they give him a guy in Holland, another guy who just refuses to follow a game plan. Another guy who's a fun fight. Another guy who can finish when he's that much better than you. But he's going to struggle against the top guys. They gave him that guy for his UFC debut. And sure enough, Venom Page gets the win. He's athletic. He's quick. He's a great striker. He launches himself recklessly into range and tries to explode with these big power shots. And he's been clipped a couple times. Even though he's a stud, he's a little bit older. And now they're matching him up against Ian Garry, a guy they call the future, a guy who's 14-0.
Not a guy they call the future, a guy that calls himself the future.
He calls himself the future. Good correction. Thank you. Now, he may be coming off of a split decision win over Jeff Neal, but that was a fantastic fight. That was
that fight fucking sucked. Everyone was booing that fight. What are you talking about?
For a young fighter getting his minutes in the UFC, that was a good fight for him to learn from, I guess is the way I should have said that. But I think that Ian Garry is a fighter who knows what he's doing. He's on a path. He wants to keep that O. He's shooting for the title, and the UFC is bringing him along the right way. He had an interview this week, and he was talking about how he only wants to fight people who are above him in the rankings. He only wants to fight people that increase it and get him closer to that title shot. And then he had to kind of sit down and woo-saw himself and realize, he went, you know what? At the end of the day, I want to be the champion. And when you're the champion, you're not fighting up anymore. When you're the champion, you're fighting down and you're beating people underneath you, and you're reminding them that you're better than them. And you're reminding them that you have your ranking higher than them for a reason, because you're the best in the world. And he had to hit that switch here and go, I'm not fighting up, I'm fighting down. And I need to not look past this guy. I need to remind him why I am higher ranked. And that just spoke volumes to me for mentality. I'm not an Ian Garry fan as far as the way he carries himself, the way the UFC is, showing his wife between fights, looking for those angry clicks. But I think he's a good fighter. He's a guy that'll do whatever it takes to win. He's got a well-rounded skill set. He took the Ronin approach where he went around and trained at a bunch of different gyms and learned from a lot of different people, one of those being Charles Oliveira, who seems to have built somewhat of a connection with the kid recently. He's really good with distance and range management. He hits hard, and he does what it takes to win. I'm backing Ian Garry here in this spot, Dan. I got minus 130. I'm going to go ahead and lay it on him. I think it's his fight to lose, and I'm going back to it, guys. I've talked about it over and over and over again. One of these days, Ian Garry is going to sub somebody. He was seconds away from doing it on Neil Magny, Dan. Literally seconds, but he waited until the very end of the third round to go for it. I think there's a very good chance he grapples here against Michael Page, a guy that got taken down by Kevin Holland, a guy whose neck got snatched by Kevin Holland. But again, a Kevin Holland who will not follow a game plan. Ian Garry does nothing but stick to the game plan. And when you're training with a guy like Charles Oliveira, who's got the jiu-jitsu of Charles Oliveira, I think he's going to take advantage of what appears to be a very obvious weakness. I've got plus 1250 Ian Garry by sub. It's already in my pocket. It opened up at 20-1 at BetOnline, and it got hammered so fast I had to jump in at plus 1250 because I don't want to be sitting here with plus 600 come Saturday. Guys, I'm going back to the well. I've been talking about it since this man got in the UFC. It's happening Saturday. Ian Garry by sub. Let's go. What do you got here, Dan?
Going opposites, my man. Going opposites. But I'm not picking MVP by sub. I'm picking MVP by KO.
There it is.
But I'm going to take his money line. I'm not going to fuck around with the props. I mean, I just think you got two kickboxers here. Give me the better kickboxer. Give me the more athletic kickboxer. Give me the faster kickboxer. And it's like I heard someone discrediting like MVP's resume, like, oh, he didn't fight anybody. Oh, really? Douglas Lima isn't anybody. Paul Daly isn't anybody. Logan Storley isn't anybody. Like Jonah Hill cut. Like, don't say shit like that. Kevin Holland isn't anybody. I know Kevin Holland ain't the brightest, but so what? And I mean, like, if Keenan Song can drop this guy, I'm pretty sure MVP can at least land something clean on him. But yeah, I am worried about what you're worried about, because I was confident as hell that Ian Garry was going to make it to the top 15 before he was ranked. I was like, okay, this guy's clearly a future top 15 guy. You like to make your like predictions of like how far you can see certain fighters going, like what you think their trajectory is going to be. And I've always thought Gary's a future top 15 guy. Well, he is a top 15 guy now. But now what I'm struggling with is how far do I think he goes in the top 15? That's what I don't have an answer for. Whereas like other guys, you know, I've been about other prospects in the past where whether I've thought that, oh, this guy's for sure going to be in the top 5, or even better yet, this guy's for sure going to fight for a belt or win a belt. With Garry, I'm not quite sure, because Garry already made it to the top 15. That was my prediction. Now I don't know where exactly he stands in the mix, and this fight's going to let us know a lot. So I'm going MVP here, man. I think there's a lot of speed on his edge. I think there's a lot of slickness. I don't think that Ian's ever experienced anything like this. Like you talk about that Jeff Neal fight, like when guys that are elite fight Jeff Neal, look what Shafkat did to Jeff Neal. Look what Wonderboy did to Jeff Neal. And then Ian barely squeaked by him. And then I want to mention something else. And this might be kind of, I don't know. Should we bring the tinfoil hats out or whatnot? But I'm just
I'll do it for you. I'll switch.
It's not even that I'm making a conspiracy theory. I just kind of want to point something else out. So for that event where Ian fought Jeff Neal, their rehydration weights came out. And let me ask you something. What do you think Ian Garry weighed in at on fight day?
On fight day? Let's see. We're fighting at 170. I'm going to say he weighed in at 183.
It's actually, you guessed closer than I thought. Than I thought you would. He came in at 180, which I thought, I don't know. Like, is this guy like going vegan now or something? Because like some of these welterweights, dude, they blow up to 195 to 200.
You know, Dreykus used to fight at 170.
Oh yeah, like Jeff Neal. Like if you look at speaking of the devil, you saw the rehydration weights. Ian Garry minus 180, or sorry, not minus 180. Ian Garry 180 pounds. Wasn't like Jeff Neal like 200 pounds. So I'm kind of worried that, like, I heard a rumor. I don't know if this is true. One of y'all let me know. Is there any truth that Ian Garry's like on a vegan diet now? Like, is that true that they got him on something like that? And that's why he looked like shit in that Jeff Neal fight. That's what I'm wondering, because MVP is going to be in there 190, 195, possibly 2. MVP is a big boy. And for 37, he moves like he's 27.
Yeah.
So I've picked Ian Garry in every single fight he's had in the UFC, but this is going to be my first time picking against him, my first time fading him. And I'm going to go MVP to hand Ian Garry his first ever defeat and his first UFC defeat.
Okay. We are heads up here, and we're both liking our spots. You love to see it. One of us is going to go ahead and get proven right on Saturday. Can't wait, my man. Cannot wait. Hey, guys, we broke the record. Not only did we break the record, we smashed it. While we were chatting about that fight, we got up and over 1,000 live viewers, and we're already up over 1,100, Dan. We've got 1,100 people watching the show live. Thank you all so much for being here and spending your Monday night here with us, rather than watching the Stanley Cup Finals, which I'll be doing as soon as we're done with this podcast. All right, next fight, we have got Mayra, Bueno, Silva, and she is taking on Macy, Chiasson in a spot that a lot of people, surprisingly, have a whole heck of a lot of interest in, Dan. It seems like there's just a flood of support for who is a normally underrated and disrespected Macy Chiasson. This number is absolutely crashing. I think Mayra Bueno opened up around the 2-1 favorite mark. We are nearing pick'em in this spot. I believe she's minus 125. No, we have hit pick'em. It is minus 110s on either side of this number here, Dan. And I'm a guy who's gone to war with Macy Chiasson several times in the past. In fact, 3 times in a row, I've bet Macy Chiasson. I bet her against Norma Dumont. We won that split. I was there live. She stiffed me after the fight. I was there cage side. I was trying to get a selfie with her and shout her out. She didn't have time. She gave time to the lesbian right next to me, though. Little unfortunate, but it is what it is. I was on her against Irene Aldana, and I thought I was going to cash a ticket, Dan. I thought I was this close to cashing a ticket against Irene Aldana until she ate that liver kick, up kick, heard round the world. One of the most random knockouts you'll ever see in UFC history. And then we got the win over Piani Kinzad in her comeback. She is a underdog, man. She is gritty. She is tough. She is big. Her grappling is improving. She's a decent wrestler. She's a good scrambler. Her jiu-jitsu offense is going the right direction, but sometimes she can get a little too high on herself. And sometimes that leads her to putting herself in bad positions, man. She'll sell out and go for these trip takedowns, the women's MMA hip tosses. You know, we don't see those often anymore, but she still goes to them every now and again. She's put herself on bottom in a scramble looking for something that isn't there, but she has that confidence to work herself out of those positions. The problem I have with that is, man, when you go up the ladder, it gets tougher and tougher to work your way out of those positions, and the better fighters are going to be the ones that catch you in those spots. Rocky Pennington broke her, man, in the second round. And I got to tell you, I love Raquel. I'm maybe the biggest Raquel fan on, in the MMA space, right? Nobody cares about Rocky. I almost cried when she got the belt wrapped around her waist. I love that girl. She is not a power puncher. She has one KO win over her entire illustrious WMMA career, and she was hurting Macy Chiasson with her punches. That's a red flag, man. I know it was a couple of years ago, but you can't get around the fact that you're getting beaten up with the hands against Raquel Pennington. Mayra Bueno Silva, the shine's come off her a little bit. She's 32 years old. She got beat by Rocky herself not too long ago. She had no contest.
Hey, Clint.
Yo.
Austin Riley just went yard.
Did he?
Yeah.
Let's go, Riley! For those of you who weren't here for the beginning of the show, my guy Dan is the biggest Braves fan I know, and I caught the bug. I'm a Braves fan by osmosis, and Austin Riley's our boy. I bet the Braves to win tonight, and I bet Riley to hit a home run at plus 320 just because my man Dan is on the podcast, and we got it. Let's go,
baby.
Cash it, baby. You love to see it. I knew the magic was coming tonight with us on the podcast. Back to the breakdown. Oh, man. So Mayra Bueno Silva is a fighter, Dan, that I bet in January, I bet her to be champion at the end of the year. She was my front runner. I really thought she was going to run this division and be champ by the end of the year. She is big. She is mean. And she's got a jiu-jitsu game where you got to play the floor as lava, man. She needs literally 1 second on the ground to snap someone's arm in half, to grab a neck, to choke you out. She's got that nasty modified guillotine, and she hit that on Holly Holm. I called that upset. I was one of the few people that was big on Mayra Bueno Silva the night she fought Holly Holm, and a lot of people looked at it like, oh, she's getting bullied around the cage, and she's going to gas, she's going to tire her out. She didn't. She just kept coming. She was walking Holly Holm down that night. She was beating Holly Holm up when she was coming forward, and eventually Holly made a mistake, and she snatched the neck, and the second she got her hands wrapped around her neck, it was over. Now, I thought she would do the same damn thing against Raquel Pennington, but Pennington, she's the thinker. She is not as physically imposing as Holly Holm, but she's got a brain on her, and she was ready for that front choke, and that was it. That was the game plan. Mayra wanted that front choke. I thought she was going to get it. She thought she was going to get it. Raquel knew it was coming, defended it perfectly, and she lost that fight because of it. That's a 5-round main event against Raquel Pennington. She went the distance. She was tired, but she went 25 minutes. I think we got to put some of those cardio concerns to bed, Dan. And I think a woman like Macy Chiasson, who's got those long, lanky-ass limbs, I know all about them. I'm a lanky guy myself, and I can't tell you how, guys, my elbow still clicks. I'm a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, Dan, and I haven't practiced jiu-jitsu since before my daughter was born. So we're talking 9-10 years at this point. My elbow still clicks from an armbar that I got caught in because I tried to muscle out of it. And with these lanky ass skinny arms, you can't do that shit. Macy makes one mistake and Mayra's taking her arm home on Saturday, Dan. I've kept my mouth shut. I have not put anything down yet because this number is crashing faster than anything I've ever seen before. It's like somebody knows something out there. I'm going to fade the damn market. I'm going to fade everybody. It is Mayra Bueno Silva season, and y'all are going to wake up when she finishes Macy Chiasson however she wants on Saturday. She can kick her right in the gut and put her down with a body kick. She can elbow her head through the canvas if she wants to. She can take home that same damn modified guillotine choke that she's hit multiple different times. She will finish Macy Chiasson on Saturday, and I will be betting her. I'm just seeing how far this line goes down, Dan.
Yeah, so I truly do believe that Mayra Bueno Silva could be a future champion in this division. Now, hear me out. That last fight against Rocky was a bad look, but you got to understand this. So, firstly, I placed my bet on Mayra for that fight, right? And I tweet out, you know, and then I got a call from a buddy on the inside telling me, like, dude, like, Mayra Bueno Silva is sick as hell, throwing up like the morning of the fight, like trying to do everything possible not to get the fight canceled. You know, that should have been my sign to hedge out, but pretty, you know, too much pride. I was like, I'm going to let it ride. And then she looked fucking terrible, like completely uncharacteristic performance. Yeah, there's stuff you got to worry about, the takedown defense, maybe spending too much time against the clinch and stuff like that. But I mean, as long as she's not sick here and you just give me the best version of Mayra. I mean, back to like the Gian Silva fight, right? When Gian was like plus 170, plus 160, plus 150. Same thing with Chiasson. You jumped on a number like that. I get it. You know, it's a completely different fight than looking at it here at 50-50. You're telling me Mayra 50-50. I mean, you know, just like you. I probably like now they're forcing my hand. Now I feel like I have to get involved. I'm wondering if this hits plus 100, like because she really did look bad against Rocky. That really was an uncharacteristic performance. But again, she was sick as hell throwing up day of the fight. So, and what are you going to pull out of your title fight the day of? You're going to pull out on what, 250K to show plus pay-per-view or whatever she was getting? Like the first ever time you get pay-per-view points, you're going to pull out? Like, you're like, nah, dog. So she took it. She had her chances in the fight. It didn't go her way, but now she picked herself back up, got that experience behind her, and she got a tough opponent in Chiasson, who's big for the weight class, who, if you're not on Chiasson's level, she will expose that. But I think that Mayra Bueno Silva is at the top of this division, just didn't get a chance to really show it last time out. And that's why you're getting a 50-50 price here. So I'm going to go Mayra Shitara Bueno Silva to continue her bringing back of violence to the bantamweight division.
I love it, Dan. I absolutely love it. And I hope somewhere, somehow, some way, she finds her way to a title shot by the end of the year. I know chances are slim, but I'm praying because I got that futures ticket in my pocket, and I'm really hoping that can get me there.
And MMA Line Mover posted an interesting comment. About Strickland and Macy? Can you post that real quick?
Let's see here.
No, down one. Down two. Yeah, that one. I
go.
didn't know about this, and I'd love to see that interaction. So if anyone has like the video clip of what he's talking about with Strickland and Chiasson like talking shit to each other or whatever the case may have been, I'd love to watch that. I'm sure it would be cinema, as some like to say.
Yeah. Do not know what's going on there, but doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me. Also, Dan, I checked. All right, the strongest women's MMA angle in MMA betting history. There's two of them. It's neck tattoo, which neither of these women have, and Brazilian lesbians. I'm sorry, but we got one angle in effect here this week. We're betting the Brazilian lesbians. Let's go, Mayra Shitara. She's going to go ahead and snatch an arm on Saturday. And I am going to fade some scary, scary people because I know some very smart and very sharp people on the other side. I don't claim to be smart, Dan. I don't claim to be sharp,
but Clint,
I'm a degenerate.
Those sharp people, they didn't take minus 110 on Chiasson. They took plus 170 on Chiasson. That's just a different matchup altogether. A plus 170 compared to minus 110 on each side. Like, I wasn't gonna
number matters.
I wasn't gonna lay no minus 2-0 on Mayra. Like, come on. But now 50-50 coin flip. Let me see if it gets to plus 100. Let's see what's up.
Exactly. I'm curious if it'll get the plus 100 or not, Dan, because I've got a theory. Now, again, I'm not the biggest market guy out there, right? Like, I am not the smartest guy in the building. But what I've tended to notice is whether or not the bookies let a line flip. If it comes down to even money and it hits minus 105 and then it heads back to minus 125, That's the side the bookies truly firmly believe needs to be the chalk, and they don't let it flip. We'll see if they let this one flip. If Macy Chiasson is minus 130 come Saturday, that's going to be very intriguing to me. But if they let this one get down to evens and then come back around and it closes minus 110 or minus 120 for Chitara, they're not willing to give you that plus money and leave it out there long on Chitara. That speaks volumes to me. We'll see if that theory comes true or not. We'll see where this line goes. But I'm tempted to jump in at evens. We'll see if we can get plus. We'll see if we can get plus. All right, everybody, here we go. Next fight up. We're breaking down Jamal Hill versus Khalil Round. Nope. We're breaking down Jamal Hill versus Carlos Ulberg. No. Anthony Smith versus Carlos Ulberg. Nope. It's Anthony Smith versus Roman Dolidze for your next fight here. And for those of you who don't know, Dan and I are both big fans of Jamal Hill, and that's kind of our thing. Is anytime Jamal Hill's on a fight card, we jump on together and we do a breakdown for it. That's one of the reasons why you haven't seen Dan on the podcast in so long, is because we've been trying to get on a Jamal Hill fight card together. We thought we had it this week, Dan. We really did. What the hell? Somehow they keep this fight intact, but it's nothing like it was originally booked to be. Anthony Smith and Roman Dolidze filling in here in insanely short notice fashion when Ulberg had to go ahead and call out with an injury. Woof, what a fight. So Anthony Smith, you guys know my doppelganger at this point. He's the dog of all dogs. This man just refuses to quit on himself. He's got a lifelong martial arts experience and just a wealth of damage that he's absorbed. That's his thing, man. He's Homer Simpson. He takes everything you can throw at him and then just keeps on coming until he breaks you. And that starts to take a wear on you after a while, right? He's 37 and 19. 35 years old. He's got 10 knockout losses, Dan. It's tough to ignore that. I bet him against Khalil Roundtree. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm not really a Khalil Roundtree top 5 guy, right? Like, I think he's dangerous. He hits hard. I don't think he belongs in the top 5. And I thought Anthony Smith would be the guy that showed him that door. He proved me wrong. He got me on that one. That finish in the third round was tough to watch, man. It was nice of Khalil Roundtree to hold up on that last shot, because he could have taken a couple extra years and a couple extra brain cells off of Anthony Smith, and he's a nice guy. Decided not to. But it felt oh so sweet, Dan. Oh so sweet to hit the 14-1 submission prop against Vitor Petrino. I went to war with my boy Anthony Smith when he was disrespected as a 4-1 underdog and subbed the new kid who everyone was way too high on. Manufactured stars, folks. I'm going to be talking about this for a while. The UFC pushed the kid too fast, too hard, and he got his vet lesson at the hands of Anthony Smith. Now, in this spot, you've got a couple grizzled veterans going at it with each other. Roman Dolidze, a BJJ black belt, a guy that used to fight at 205, moved down to 185. That's where his career has been. Short notice, he'll come back up to 205, no problem. But this guy is a beast. He is physically strong. He's got big time power. He's one of these Georgian warriors that I'm talking about all the time. He's 35 years old and he's on a 2-fight skid himself. Now he's lost to Marvin Vettori and Nasruddin Imavov. You know, not a whole lot of shame there in that, right? But that back takedown that he got on, the back control, the calf slicer position on Jack Hermanson that he was able to flip into a finish. He's so reliant on his finishes, Dan, and that's kind of the trouble for me with Dolidze. Is his money line is almost always his inside the distance. He's only won one decision in the UFC, and it was against Leonardo Straupoli, a guy that's not doing great in the PFL right now. So I don't want to bank on a guy who's so stuck on finishes. And we just saw not long ago, Anthony Smith used a very high tier game plan against a very dangerous and large 205er in Ryan Spann. And he jabbed him up and he moved around the cage and he stole a decision against a guy like that. I could see him doing that here to Roman Dolidze. I could see both these guys getting takedowns because, frankly, Dan, both of them are more than willing to go to their back. They're so confident in their own jiu-jitsu. Either guy could get top position. Now, Anthony Smith is usually the one falling to his back, so maybe Roman Dolidze gets on top of him. But if you pull you want me to submit him, coach, and roll for a heel hook, I don't think you're catching Anthony Smith with that shit, and he'll end up on your back if you pull that. So I think Dolidze is prone to making mistakes because he goes for that finish and he makes poor choices trying to prove that he's the bigger man in there sometimes. And if he does that here, Anthony Smith will take advantage. I worry about Roman Dolidze's gas tank. It's a problem that he's always had. He slows down deeper in fights. And on short notice, I know the 205 is going to help, but how deep in camp was he? Is that going to be a problem for him going a hard 15 minutes? Could be an issue. I think that Anthony Smith is a live dog yet again in this spot, Dan, but the problem is I'm scared of that durability. I'm scared of that head kick. I'm scared of Roman Dolidze doing exactly what he did to Phil Hawes. Like, it's totally on the table for Dolidze to finish this guy anywhere from the first, the second, or the third round. But Dolidze's got to finish. I think Smith could finish. I think Smith could win a decision. I feel like he's got more tools in the toolbox at this point. I'm very tempted to add a little bit more money. Go back to the war, man, with Anthony Smith. What are you doing here, Dan?
I mean, this fight wasn't ever on my radar to begin with. I never pictured these two ever fighting.
Yep.
And they're both kind of like opportunistic, like finishers. Neither guy is really the best at winning decisions or point fighting percent. Should we call Jamal Hill and see what he says? He's friends with Anthony Smith. Should we see what Jamal thinks?
Hey, if Jamal feels like talking to us, my man, you know I'm a fan. I'm happy to hear what he thinks.
I'll call him. Let's see what he says. You can hear that?
Yep, coming through clear.
Your call has been forwarded to.
Yeah, we tried.
Hey, but Cody called back. Let's see if Uncle Mal calls back. But dude, I have no fucking idea. Like, I don't know, man. I'll go Anthony Smith, but I really don't know. So
fair enough. Fair enough, man. I haven't bet this one yet, guys. I'm watching it closely. I've got lots of big bets on this card already, so I'm not sure I need any more money involved. And the durability of Smith scares me, but I'm going to pick him to win. I'm going to pick him to get the win. We'll see what happens. Next up, co-main event, everybody. We've got Brian T. City Ortega. He's taking on Diego Lopez. And Dan, I have a strong conviction on this fight, and I think there's a lot of recency bias going on, and it's not who you'd think. It's not who you'd think. It's time we accepted that Diego Lopez potentially could wrap gold around his waist, Dan. It's time we accepted that this man has a championship level skill set. He can strike. He's got power. He can wrestle. He can submit people. He is deadly in every single aspect of this game. And he can do it for 15 straight minutes. I got to tell you, man, in his UFC debut, he fought Movsar Evloev. And he had that man's legs so far extended in the third round that I don't know a single other human being that would not have tapped to that fight, or their knee would have exploded and the referee would have gotten in there and stopped it for them. I don't believe that Movsar Evloev is capable of being submitted, Dan. That's my theory, is that I think he's got superhuman flexibility and he simply cannot be tapped out by any man on God's green earth. So I don't hold that against him whatsoever, because literally any other human being is tapping in that spot. So Diego Lopez is on just an incredible trajectory, but what does his trajectory look like if he taps Movsar in his UFC debut? This man could have already been in the contender circle. He could have already been fighting for gold. And a lot of people are talking, bro, he's fighting Gavin Tucker. He's fighting Sadiq Youssef. What's that tell you? What's that tell you about him? That means nothing. Bro, he's not fighting these men. He's disposing of them, Dan. We talk about padded records coming to the UFC. These guys that are on Dana White's Contender Series, they're getting here and they're fighting nobodies. Are they 5-5? 5 knockouts and 5 decisions. Are they struggling, with your uncle that's 47 years old and still cage fighting on the weekends? Or are they handling the dudes that are in front of them? The guys that are running through people on the regionals, those are the ones that end up being incredibly successful at the UFC level. This guy is doing that, but he's doing it at the UFC level. 3-fight win streak, all 3 in the first round. That speaks volumes. It's not necessarily that he's fighting these particular guys. If they were competitive, different story, but they've been non-competitive. Now, Brian Ortega, Dan, interesting case. He's 16-3. He's 33 years old. He's not the most active fighter in the world, but I'm old enough to remember that people were trampling their grandmothers trying to get to the window to put money on Yair Rodriguez. And that was just 4 months ago, Dan, that people could not wait to pile in hand over fist and get their money in on Yair Rodriguez. And Brian Ortega finished that man. Now, he took a hell of a beating getting there. Brian Ortega is another guy that you can say some of the same things. His striking has drastically improved. He's a wizard on the ground. He has a very high-level skill set on the mat. He's got good, solid wrestling. He showed that against Yair Rodriguez, and he's a tough son of a bitch, Dan. He is so hard to actually get out of there. Even if you're capable of knocking this guy out, it doesn't always happen. He took everything Yair had, and then he came back and he bullied him, and he tapped him out in the third round. But now everybody thinks that Brian Ortega is the value of the week. Everyone thinks Brian Ortega is the dog of the week. After
is that true? Because all I've seen is Diego Lopez max bets.
Oh, see, I'm just getting pushback on my bet on Diego Lopez. I haven't seen nearly as many Diego Lopez lovers in this spot. I see a lot of love for Brian Ortega out there. A lot of people telling me how wrong I am back in Diego Lopez in this spot. So this must be the Twitter Civil War of the week here, Dan. Like maybe this is more 50-50 than I'm seeing, but I'm seeing lots of Ortega love. But at the end of the day, Brian's a little older. He's taken an absolute metric ton of damage. And one thing that really stood out to me, Dan, he accepted his next fight at 155 pounds. This man was ready to move on from the division. This man was ready to move on to greener pastures, take a different opportunity. 4 months ago, he was in an absolute war with Yair Rodriguez. He took a 12-minute beating until he was able to turn the tide. And now he's being offered a fight where he can come back down to the weight class he was going to abandon on relatively short notice, quick turnaround for a guy that took that kind of damage. And I think of the scene from the UFC behind the scenes where they're talking to Aljamain Sterling. Dan, I made one of the biggest underdog bets of my life on Sean O'Malley when he fought Aljamain Sterling. And it was because the UFC set that fight up. They wanted Aljamain Sterling to be the fall guy for Sugar Sean O'Malley. And people didn't believe me, Dan. People did not believe me when I said that. I saw the writing on the wall. I called it. And now it's on video that they bullied Aljamain Sterling into taking a fight that was too soon, that he wasn't ready for, that he wasn't prepped for, and they made him take it quickly so he didn't have the time to get ready for it, so the guy they wanted to win could get his hand raised. And that's exactly what I think is happening here. I think that they've got an older commodity in Brian Ortega who got a big-time notable win, a huge highlight, and he took a lot of damage in his last fight. And the UFC's going, hey, we'll throw you a bone. Take this fight. Take one more down a weight class before you move up. And do it, coming up here, big pay-per-view card. We'll make it worth your while. I see the writing on the wall, Dan. I think Lopez is a star. And I think Lopez has a championship skill set. I think he's more well-rounded than Brian Ortega is. And if the grappling cancels each other out, I think Lopez is going to be the better striker. I think he's going to hit harder on the feet. And I think he's going to finish what Yair Rodriguez started. I fully expect Diego Lopez to win another fight and to do it dominatingly. He's one of the few people in this division that can hang on the ground with Brian Ortega, and he's going to hurt him on the feet. It's Diego Lopez season, Dan. Diego is him. I'm betting on him. I've already got a big bet on him. We're going to war, baby. One more time with the emo haircut.
It's tough because it's like when you say Diego Lopez is him, like when I think of who's him at 145, I think of Max Holloway. I think of Alexander Volkanovski. I think of Ilya Topuria. Like, I think those guys would beat the ever-loving shit out of Diego Lopez.
He's him this weekend.
You said what now?
He's him this weekend.
Okay. Like, the thing that's interesting is that they got similar qualities. Both have opportunistic submission finishing ability. I think that Diego has some of the best no-gi jiu-jitsu, not just in the featherweight division, but probably in the UFC. But I think that Ortega's jiu-jitsu has obviously been insane for years too. And it's like, when I think about the guys that Diego Lopez is going to finish, Gavin Tucker, that was an incredible finish. Gavin Tucker's 40. Pat Sabatini, that was an incredible finish. Pat Sabatini has no chin. Sodiq Yusuf, that was an incredible finish, but everybody knows that Sodiq was never the same after his health issues. So now you're fighting a guy in Ortega who's ultra durable. The only time that Ortega's ever been finished was fourth round, like they didn't let him answer the bell because Max Holloway did what Max Holloway does and unloaded the insane amount of volume, which he has. Like he breaks records every single fight. Diego Lopez doesn't have output like that. What Diego Lopez does have is power, though, and he's able to swarm these guys early. But anytime that Diego Lopez gets into an extended fight, shit gets sketchy. I mean, do you know what Diego's lifetime record is when fights go to decision off the top of your head?
And not off the top of my head, I don't.
It's 2-4. Do you know what Brian Ortega's record is off the top of your head when fights go to decision?
I do not.
It's 5-1. So,
Okay.
I mean, Brian's shown me that he's not just finish or buzz. Brian's shown me that, I mean, that Korean zombie fight, he put up some numbers. And he has, even in the Volk and the Max fights where he got the ever-loving shit beaten out of him, he still put up like over 100 significant strikes in both. Pretty damn sure, right? Like, let me just double check before I'm saying things that aren't true. Yeah, okay. Yeah, over 100 against Max, over 100 against Chiasson, less than 100 against Volk. But I don't see that kind of output from Lopez. I see, like, when Lopez got extended against Joe Anderson Brito, he landed 20 total strikes. When he got extended against Movsar, he landed 37 total strikes, but he had those deep submission attempts. Are you going to submit Ortega? I'm not saying it can't happen, because I remember when when Yuri and Glover fought the first time, the only time they were scheduled for a rematch. It never happened. But when Yuri and Glover fought, I remember I had Brett Apley on my show, and I was like, well, we can count out the possibility of Yuri submitting Glover, right? And Brett Apley was like, you never know. You never know. And then Yuri goes on and submits Glover. So look, anything can happen, but I just have a hard time seeing a guy like Ortega get submitted, knocked out. He did get dropped his last fight, but he recovered nicely and got
multiple times.
But it was in the very beginning of the fight. He got dropped twice. And then after that, he took over. And what I liked about that was one big criticism we've had about Ortega was he doesn't shoot for enough takedowns. He likes to bang with everybody. They shoot a takedown on him, then he'll wrap up a guillotine or a triangle, whatever the case may be. He was the one establishing the takedowns on Yair. So then there's the short notice element, which is tough. But just stylistically speaking, like, Diego runs through guys with suspect chins or with not the best submission defense. Ortega's got a legendary chin and has got insane jiu-jitsu. So while I'm not saying that you're wrong, I'm just wondering where this 5-unit confidence is coming from with this a specific matchup. That's what I'd love for you to explain that again.
Hey, like I said before, man, I think that he can compete absolutely everywhere with Ortega. And I think the spot is awful for Ortega, having absorbed the kind of damage he did not that long ago, not having enough time to recover from that, and then taking on a guy who is streaking the way that this kid is. You know, you talked about your Dana White's Contender Series. You love to listen to what Dana said afterward, to find out what he thinks about these kids and if they can sink or swim. I think the UFC is buying this kid. I think the UFC is putting this kid in a position to succeed. And because of that, I'm willing to put my money that they're right. I think that he can beat a guy who's older, who's taken a lot of damage, who's having a quick turnaround after taking a lot of damage, and then can compete with him everywhere. I'm buying that. Now, Dan, I've told you before many times, my guy, I'm a degenerate, okay? I am not the sharpest bettor in the game. I tell everybody what I'm putting my money on, and they can choose to do with that information what they will. You don't have to tail me. I'm taking this bet, and I'm putting a decent amount of money on Lopez because I think he's going to win on Saturday. Am I the sharpest bettor in the game? Should you do that too? Probably not. But that's what I'm doing.
Hey, I mean, I wish you luck. It's just tough for me when, like if I'm thinking like I want to go big on Diego Lopez, I want a guy who has suspect submission defense. I want a guy who's got a suspect chin. I want a guy who's not that experienced. And like Ortega has like been in there with the best of the best. So it's just tough from, and his jiu-jitsu is so good. His chin is so good. Hey, listen, if Lopez comes out here and steamrolls Brian Ortega the way he's been doing to everyone
Wouldn't that
else,
be something?
oh my God, like tip your cap. But again, this is one where I probably just want to sit back and enjoy and see where they're at and take it from there. But I'm gonna pick Ortega.
Fair enough, Dan. That is fair enough, and the questions fair enough as well. I appreciate the comeback on that. That's there's going to be a hell of a fight, man. There's going to be a lot of people involved in this fight. I think it's going to be one of the most popular as far as action on both sides goes. So it's going to be really interesting to see this one play out. But I'm going to bet the emo kid one more time. All right, everybody. Main event time. It is Alex Payton Pereira. He is taking on Jiří Prochazka, the craziest man in MMA. And Dan, before we get into this, I swore I would never do it again. I had the biggest bet of my life, quite literally, on Jamal Hill when he fought Alex Pereira. And I just had to come to grips with the fact that, I thought maybe Alex Pereira would flare out. I have concerns about his durability and his chin after how long he's been in the sport of martial arts. He's had a full kickboxing career before he switched over to MMA. That's a lot of miles. A guy like Israel Adesanya knocks you out. I thought the guys at 205 would find more success and would land on that chin, hit harder, and also be able to cause him problems, but that simply has not happened. This man has overcome everything, every single obstacle put in front of him that I thought he wouldn't be able to get by. And he's got gold wrapped around his waist. He's one of the best 205ers we've ever seen, and he's the current seated champion in the UFC. And I swore he's taken too much money from me. I'm not going to try to bet against this man anymore. I'm not going to try to get one over on Alex Pereira. But guys, there was one other thing that I said. We talk, high thoughts in MMA, Dan. The odds are, what if they fought 10 times, right? That's the example we always use. What if they fought 10 times? Does he win 7 out of 10 times? Does he win 2 out of 10 times? That's how we come up with whether or not we think the odds have value. And we don't get a lot of rematches in MMA. But this is a moment where I am on record saying, if they ran the fight back, I loved what I saw from Jiří in the first fight. I bet on Jiří that night and I lost because he got caught by Alex Pereira. And I said if they ever ran that fight back again, I would go right back to it. I would bet Jiří again. So I know I swore off it, but here we are. I'm a man of my word. We've got Payton versus Jiří 2, and I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I bet Jiří Prochazka, and Dan, I debated putting 1 unit on Jiří. I thought, you know what? I'll keep my word. I'll put a bet on him, but I'm not going crazy. And then I realized that would be the coward's way out. Last time they fought, I was willing to put a max bet on Jiří, a max bet. And if in the rematch, I only put 1 unit on it because I was scared, that's not me. That ain't me. Mama didn't raise no bitch. We got a 5 unit bet on Jiří. I'm not going max bet because Jiří has already broken 2 of my max bets. The max bet record is 8-3, and 2 of those losses, friends, are Jiří, are Payton, are Alex Pereira. I'm not losing another max bet against Payton, but I will put 5 units. I will make sure it's a big enough bet that this thing hurts if I'm wrong. I believe if they run this fight 10 times, it's probably going to be 5-5, and it may even be 6-4 for Jiří, Dan. That's what I truly believe of this matchup. So I have to take the plus odds. I got plus 145. I am betting Jiří Prochazka, and I believe that the circumstances matter in this spot. Alex Pereira has been the most active champion the UFC has to date right now. He's taken a ton of opportunities, and again, the age, the wear and tear, they are turning him around again quickly, and I don't think that favors him. Can he win? Obviously, yes. He's got the left hand from hell. Folks, if he connects with the left hand, he can win at heavyweight. Like, that man will put an elephant down with the left hand. But every other aspect of the game, I believe, belongs to Jiří. The first fight, maybe a bit of a short stoppage. Maybe a little early. Jiří's been a guy that's gotten rocked and hurt and come back and won fights in the past, and they didn't let it continue. Could he have come out and gotten that win? He could have. He could have, but I'm not going to sit and cry about that here today. I did that plenty a couple of months ago. Jiří was coming off of a long injury layoff, and his first fight back was immediately deep end, title shot, scariest man in the division. He's got his rust off now. He took an L. He came back. He got a dominating win in his last fight. Thank God I went to war with him in that spot against Rakic. And now that he's knocked the rust off, Dan, I think he's coming back, and this fight is going to be what it should have. I think it's a slight positive matchmaking-wise for Yuri. I think it's a slight negative matchmaking-wise for Alex. And at the end of the day, I think that Alex Pereira should be the -125, -130 favorite based on what I'm seeing, based on their skill sets. And now that's just my opinion, guys. I might be wrong. I've been nothing but wrong about Alex Pereira up until this point, but I am willing to put my money where my damn mouth is. And I did put the big bet on Yuri Prochazka, Dan. Talk to me. I don't know if you're going to scare the shit out of me or if you're going to make me feel good, but I'm ready. I'm here for it. What you got on this fight, man?
Yeah, it's tough for me in terms of the big bet, right? Because I see it as like a 50-50 fight. But I definitely understand the dog odds on Jiri. I mean, he was doing great the first fight. He was doing fantastic. I mean, listen, was he getting caught with calf kicks? Yes. Did he eventually succumb to the left hook? Yes. But there were also moments where he was pressuring Alex. He was landing punches and bunches. He actually had Alex rocked. He took down Alex. So he had some really good moments in that fight too. And then I feel like Alex gets a lot of favorable reffing in a lot of his fights. Like you pull up the first Adesanya fight. And by first, I don't mean in kickboxing. I mean in the UFC at Madison Square Garden. And like Mark Goddard's ref in that fight. And like Mark Goddard's the same ref that if you look behind me, I have a poster of Izzy Adesanya versus Kelvin Gastelum because I was at that fight. And go pull up round 5 of Izzy versus Kelvin. Tell me why Mark Goddard lets Kelvin almost die and get like dropped like 3-4 times in that 5th round and they don't stop it. But in Izzy versus Poatan, Mark Goddard, he doesn't even let him drop to the ground and he stops the fight. Now, I'm not debating that he was rocked. Of course he was rocked, but like if you let Kelvin almost die and you're not stopping the fight, like why can't Izzy like, you know, at least go down? Then there's the Yuri fight. Was it Mark Goddard again? I don't remember who reffed the Yuri versus Alex fight. But it might have been Mark again. And so Yuri gets caught with that left hook. He goes in for a shot, kind of eats some Travis Brown elbows, goes down to, you know, to mount, and then they just stop the fight. Like, at least let this dude, like Yuri is a samurai. Let Yuri go out cold. I thought that was an early stoppage. And people will be like, well, Yuri said it wasn't an early stoppage. Guys, Yuri's a humble guy that where he comes from, he believes in like the samurai code and being super humble. And like, you remember, sorry, I forgot what I was going to say regarding that, but he was basically saying the night of the fight, he was saying like, oh no, it was legit. I was out. But then like a few months later, he was like, actually, I'm not so sure about that stoppage. And if you watch that stoppage, like as soon as the ref like stops them, like Yuri immediately goes to turtle. Like, come on, man, let him eat like like a guy like Yuri. You let a guy like that go out cold. Okay. Yeah. And then the Jamal fight, that was a little bit of a different kind of thing. So when you have Orthodox versus Southpaw, which was the dynamic, Jamal being the Southpaw and Alex being the Orthodox, it comes down to the lead leg battle, which what that means is the guy who's controlling the distance is the guy who has their lead leg on the outside. That's the dynamic of a Southpaw versus Orthodox matchup. And for the entire time, Jamal was winning the lead leg battle, but Jamal throws a kick that looked like it hit Poatan in the hip. Some people said it was the cup. And there was the infamous moment where Herb Dean kind of steps in for a sec, and then Poatan alpha males Herb Dean is like, nah, get the fuck out my way, baby. I'm about to make this happen. And in that moment where he alpha mailed Herb Dean, where Herb Dean should have been like, hey, neutral corners, are you good? Are you good? Okay, let's restart. Instead, this dude, Alex, grown man's Herb Dean, moves him out the way. And in that moment, that's the one time. If you go on YouTube, you pull up that fight right now, you can watch it on slower speeds. You know that you can do it. You can do it on faster speeds, like 2 times, or you can do it slower speeds, like 0.5 times, right? Watch that fight on slow motion and watch the whole fight, watch the lead leg battle, and then watch when Herb Dean does his little separation. During that moment, Alex, with his vet tactics, he's so seasoned, that's when he closes the distance and finally gets the angle that he hasn't had the entire fight. They dap up each other. Jamal sends a little feeler punch out. Oh, look, Alex is already closed the distance. He's already cut his angle. Boom! Angle. Alex has one of the most nuclear left hands in the entire sport. And you let a guy like that cut the angle on you, I mean, shit's over. So, yeah, I just thought that Herb should have maybe given them neutral corners on a spot like that. I didn't like the restart there. So there's that. There's the Yuri early stoppage. There's the Izzy early stoppage. I feel like this guy gets a lot of respect from the refs because he's so intimidating. He's got such a presence, and he gets a lot of favorable, a lot of favorable reffing. But that being said, I don't think this fight's going to come down to that. I think that it's going to come down to the calf kicks and the left hook of Poatan versus the forward pressure, that kind of unorthodox style of Yuri, where Yuri will take your best shots early, but then when Yuri starts to find his zone, he starts to get into his flow, he starts to start letting his shots go in combinations, that's when he gets scary. So I see this being a 50-50 fight, and in a case like that where it could go either way, I'm going to side with the dog. Now, I can't get to 5 units like you, because 5 units, like, that means that I think that it's like a mismatch. That means that I think that, like, oh yeah, we're just going to run through this guy without a shadow of a doubt. Whereas here, I think it's 50-50, but I still think there's value on a plus 130 dog. So I would take a 1 or 2 unit shot. But yeah, I think you got a lot of balls taking 5.
My man. Hey, that's how I play the game. That's how I play the game. Sometimes it's a little more math than science. Sometimes it's a little bit more sometimes it's a little bit more emotion than it is science. That I mix and match the way I go when it comes to my bigger bets. And at the end of the day, I've got a pretty good record on them. So I've got a decent job of sniffing them out. And Pereira's been the one guy that's been able to kind of crack that process here for me. So we'll see what happens. I'm a man of my word. I'll put a big bet on this spot yet again. And this will be it, Dan. This will be it. If
pull up
Pereira,
Prison Mike's comment. He thinks we should do a little friendly something.
A little go head to head on the Ortega and Lopez. Ooh, shot of their choice, Dan. Are you down for a drink bet here on the co-main event?
Why not?
I'm in. I like it.
What do you want?
What do you want?
Just whatever. Wait, so
shot bet. One drink, winner, loser. Call it a day.
So okay, I see what's going on. So Lopez wins, I take a shot. Ortega wins, you take a shot. Okay.
You got it.
Seems good to me. Air handshake.
Seems good to me. Handshake. There it is. All right, folks. That is UFC 303. We made it. We made it all the way through this card. This is an awesome card, you guys. It is rare for these big pay-per-view cards that we get such good betting numbers. Usually it's blowouts. It's all minus 300 favorites. We're going to have a lot of opportunities. Be careful. Pick your spots well. Good luck no matter what you choose to be on here this weekend, but it should be a hell of a fun card watching wise. We got a couple of trash cans, a couple dumpster fires coming up here, Dan. So let's enjoy this weekend while we can. My friend, thank you for chilling with me for 2 hours and talking betting and fights. Let the people know what they can do to support you. If you've got any content coming out, my guy, any sponsors, feel free to shout them out right now.
No, I mean, just thank you for having me. It's always an honor to talk fights with you. I appreciate you having me. And thank you to everyone in the chat. It was cool to do a live show with the chat. Y'all are passionate. Y'all love the sport. So thank you guys very much. My show is called Half the Battle. It's available everywhere podcasts are found. Just type in Half the Battle on YouTube or wherever. But I'm truly grateful that you had me. And again, thank you to everybody in the chat. And I hope y'all cash bets this weekend.
Love it. My freaking guy. All right, guys, you know what it is. So pay-per-view week, that means we've got the Total Takedown Thursday. Of course, we bust out the tinfoil hat for the Undefeated Post Weigh-In Show on Friday. But on pay-per-view weeks, I hook up with my guy from Superbook Sports, and we will have the Sharp Action Report coming to you on Friday. And the big guy may be involved in this week. A little teaser there for you guys. Something might have dropped already. So be sure to tune in right here at Home of Fight. Sign up for the gauntlet, guys. Technically, there's no sign up. You just have a $50 bankroll on Bet Openly. So you don't have to sign up. But get signed up for Bet Openly so I can come give you $600 in cash and prizes. But the trick is you got to beat me, Dan. I won second place in my own damn contest last time. So I won the $200 $200. I ended up giving it away the next week doing something else, but you get the point. I want you to win the cash. Come beat me in the contest and take it. Check out the link in the description below for that, you guys. And hey, I just appreciate the hell out of all you. New show record, 1,344 live freaking viewers right here on Home of Fight, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here and setting that record for us this evening. I should have been better prepared. If I had Fireball with me, I would have taken a shot. Follow me. I'm headed over to Pub Sports Radio. I'm going to sweat out my 18-1 futures ticket on the Florida Panthers. So I'm going to go scarf some food real quick, and then I'm going to head over to Pub Sports Radio to catch the end of this hockey game, guys. Everybody have a wonderful week. I wish you good luck on all of your bets, unless you're betting Alex Pereira, because I'm on Jerry Big. Let's go, Jerry. Save me a little face here, baby. Come on. Dan, my man, anything on the way out? You good to go?
I'm great, man. Appreciate you.
Beautiful. Thanks for coming on, man. Always love talking fights with you. That's it, everybody. Be good. Have a great week. Good luck, and let's roll.